Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar. Now if I told you not to search something up on the internet, well, you're probably opening another tab and going through with it. So let's rip the band-aid right off. What we're about to talk about today is nothing necessarily new. It's actually a deeper dive into what is in fact some of the weirdest searches that you can do on here on YouTube. Now, ladies and gentlemen, months ago, I want to say around 7, I did a video titled full stop punctuation, or I think it was something around there. Now, when I looked up full stop punctuation, you can do this for yourself right now. If you go to YouTube search engine right now and just put in a period, all right, and hit enter, you'll find some really wild results. In a lot of cases, you'll find videos that appear to have really creepy thumbnails, and of course, in some cases, all right, it just gets even wilder. Now, again, I don't want you to scroll too hard into it, because sometimes you'll come across some really creepy thumbnails of actual gore footage, and that's not something I can show you on YouTube. So we're going to have to stop right there. Now, even beyond all of it, there's been other rabbit holes with similar veins. Now, this isn't similar to things like, the watch rabbit hole we looked into. This is purely related to the search system. Now, one of the newest searches that have been sort of popping up in the last 2 weeks that I've been asked to look into, and I've seen around on TikTok and various other social media services, is the all right? Now, if you haven't looked at this letter all right, which is effectively an O with a strike through it, we'll actually look into the whole etymology of the language real quickly. The O with the slash is popular in languages such as Danish, such as Norwegian, a lot of Southern Sami languages, and of course, the general sound is like this. Let's listen to it close. Yeah, if we can actually listen to it real quick, let me fire up the old headset over here. We don't really need audio, but if you listen to it, it sounds all right, so that's the actual pronunciation. Now, again, I'm not a lingual expert, so I really wouldn't know why you would use this versus the standard O, and I'm not going to get into it that far. What's important in our little case is actually typing this into YouTube like so. Now, as soon as you enter this into the search field, you'll find some really, really dark stuff. Now, a lot of these thumbnails I have had to censor because while a lot of these videos are just sort of edgy art projects that you would find on the dark web or some deep corner of the internet, the actual thumbnails involved do stem from actual snuff pornography, actual gore footage, and that's not something that I can show you on the internet. Some of the actual thumbnails, for instance, have been taken out of places like narco footage, for instance, which if you don't know the subreddit, it exists like many other subreddits where they actually catalog the social media profiles of Mexican cartel members. And again, for YouTube's sake, we're not trying to promote any of these people. These are bad individuals. But of course, some of the terrible things they do, such as interrogations and straight up killings, that constantly gets cataloged all over social media. A lot of places you find it is Instagram, TikTok. It's kind of a recruitment drive for these sickos in order to get newer blood into their illegal empires. So of course, taking some of their footage and throwing it all over the internet, that's one of the sources, okay? This is just one source that catalogs that information. All of this decrepit stuff is on the clear net in many parts of social media. So again, going back to for instance, you can find that there's plenty of titles, but one of them that stands out the most is this string of characters. Now, if you actually look through these titles, you'll see that this string is oftentimes repeated. It starts off with O.O, USU, O, copyright, and then ... And of course, you can see the similarities going down. This is how this letter all right, ends up taking over, the YouTube search algorithm with creepy results. It's just a psyop by a bunch of edgy people to do it, okay? There's no greater secret. There's no rabbit hole to really go down, rather, that all the way ends up in some crazy, creepy conspiracy, okay? At the end of the day, I'm just trying to demystify some of it. So I guess for argument's sake, we're going to actually click on some of these, darker videos and sort of see what they actually are. Now this one from the Bangladesh man, all right, who has a total of 664 subscribers, this video has reached 500,000 views, and it was uploaded July of 2021. The description is, "Care more about skinny legs, went crazy." Now that I removed the censor, some of you watching my channel may recognize this immediately. Yeah, it's blankroomsoup.avi. All right, this is the creepy footage that they wanted to talk about. The old Ray suits walking up to this man eating what appears to be noodles with a comically large spoon. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, is this necessarily real and scary? Not necessarily. It's creepy, it's unnerving, but this is not something that's found and taken off of the dark web, and these are not creepy individuals who are forcing this person to eat food. This is a interesting, comedic hole to go down, rather, is all I'm going to say. Even the comment sections to these videos are oftentimes completely comical, with comments such as, how it feels eating school food. I agree. I totally get that. That's not even comical. That's just the truth. Shawty's like a melody in my head. Thing that I can't keep out. Got me singing like na 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 every day. I feel like I'm supposed to know this song, but I'm too old for this shit. Ooh, this one is a little fucked up. This is Gnaw On, the same title as you can see, uploaded 5 months ago with less than 500 views, and holy crap, this is actually one of the more unnerving videos in this rabbit hole to get down. It's just somebody peeking around, looking into the camera as the camera has a warp filter applied to it. And of course, it's 3 minutes of wild footage, okay? So for instance, you've got content like this, person staring right back at you. Oh! The sudden movements in these videos definitely freak me out a lot more. How did I end up on this godforsaken part of YouTube? That's a good question. You typed in when you probably shouldn't have. Of course, one of my personal favorites is the same title, although with the words terror and a bunch of Arabic added to the end of it, with a nice winky emoji face. Now this one comes from Brazilian Horror Story, with 1,830 subscribers. Now, of course, in the comment sections, they're definitely saying this is a certified hood classic. So let's actually watch this one real quick. It starts off with what appears to be one of the characters from Netflix's show Money Heist with a bag over their head, as they're also wearing a mask. As that mask seems to be removed, this person's also got something. This is something out of like normal porn for normal people. And of course, this person's so visibly scared of this situation. Now, of course, what's going to happen is they're going to come up, they're going to rip that, I guess, gag off of them, which really didn't make any sense because the mask wouldn't have done anything. And of course, that's where this whole story kind of ends. If you seek into it, they bring what appears to be like a vibrator tool, and that's pretty much it. That's the horror story. It is a comical horror story, and that's pretty much where it ends. Now again, ladies and gentlemen, the way that this also works is anybody, anytime can start an operation like this and creep the fuck out of individuals on the internet. But to further demystify this, there's a lot of words in the Unicode alphabet. The Unicode system is what we use to basically create interoperable fonts and frameworks between multiple systems, just to put it very lightly, okay? Now, of course, you'll notice common Unicode characters like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all right? Alphabets from the English language. But of course, there's tons of actual other pieces of Unicode that exist to cover special characters for other languages. Now, we've already looked at with the O struck through it, but if you actually look around, there's multiple characters, like, for instance, the Latin capital letter Oi, okay? So all we need to do is just copy this. We can literally go right back to YouTube, all right, drop that in there, and find other random rabbit holes to go down into. Now, these aren't necessarily as nefarious as one would think, but as you can see, it's cataloging anybody that has put that character into their title, okay? So you'll see a bunch of random footage. You'll see music, you'll see PUBG Mobile gameplay, somebody's playing Black Ops 1, you can see like 18 minutes of the campaign if you felt like it. And of course, that's pretty much how it goes. And same thing with other things. I took this H-looking letter and I found some other creepy videos down to it, all right? That's pretty much just how this whole thing works. I found a whole channel dedicated around like Japanese calligraphy and like making weird images and whatnot. There's so much to go down when it comes to all the content that's been uploaded onto YouTube. There's tens of thousands of hours of footage uploaded. A lot of it doesn't get watched. A lot of it gets titled like this, and a lot of it just stays on YouTube servers waiting to be uncovered by the next bored individual. I wouldn't be surprised if I took the small letter O with diuresis, all right, or diarrhea, I don't know, and just dropped that in there, and would find some other random stuff tossed into it, okay? Not all these rabbit holes are necessarily going to be dark, but a lot of these rabbit holes oftentimes get overtaken by some sort of op, whether it be from like 4chan, Reddit, some bored Discord users, all uploading creepy footage, all titled the same and taking over YouTube search rankings. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, today we wanted to demystify a creepy YouTube rabbit hole. And also, we could have watched some creepy videos, which we just have. Now, none of these videos necessarily violate YouTube's terms of services. Again, may I remind you, some of these videos do consist of actual snuff footage. in their thumbnails, snuff-like thumbnails to be precise, okay? Actual gore footage, dead bodies. I saw one where like a dude was getting decapitated in the search ranking, and that's something that YouTube is going to have to look into to stop. Some of the weird thumbnails do definitely exist. So if you do search this and come across that, you have actually been warned, okay? So again, I'm just putting that out there. I'm protecting myself in all forms of legal, okay? I'm disclaiming everything out there. Like I said in the beginning, don't search this because it's overtaken by a bunch of edgy art projects. And in some cases, you can at least, in my experience, see some actual snuff footage yourself too. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out. So I've been drinking tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you know, a little bit, 3 in the morning, and I'm actually really sad, and I'm actually at all manners of completely enraged and completely angry. Now you may be wondering what has triggered me in such a way. Well, we'll continue it. But before I begin, this video is protected under the fair use. You know, everything you're about to see is a fair use piece. This is an investigative, journalistic look at what we're about to see. Now, a couple days ago, I saw J Station. This is the last fucking video I have on this guy ever, and you'll see why. Now, you made a video called "My Girlfriend Alexia Died. Rest in Peace!" 1 day ago, garnering 500,000 views. Now, I know that Jay's audience is comprised of people that are under the age of, I want to say 4, maybe fetuses even, but of course, as you can say, they believed it. They believed a video that I had to turn ad block off to truly believe. Yes, in fact, his girlfriend has passed away, apparently. 46,000 likes, all right, it happens. But why the fuck am I looking at an ad on someone that just passed away? Especially someone that is in such a fucking infatuative relationship with this individual, right? Now, if we go down over here, all right, rest in peace, we will miss you. At no point has there ever been a disclaimer that this is in fact a fake video, but at least I know that her death was in the category of entertainment, and Lord and behold, a lot of these people were entertained. There were such meme-tastic comments like, "You can bring her back. Remember you did a video where you brought her dog back?" Yep, in fact, Jay can bring back the dead. Now I'm going to get don't fuck with cats territory over here. We're going to do a little bit of investigative journalism regarding this. I'm not going to watch this video in particular. I don't really want to give the view as much as I can. But what you really have to notice over here is just looking at the back. All right, this is in fact a Canadian city. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this might in fact be the fucking 6. You know, the Toronto boys. Toronto represent! I'm from there, dude! Of course I know where my fucking city is! But if you look in the actual apartment over here, Jay's girlfriend has just passed away. And interestingly enough, there's not a single fucking tear. But what there is half a fucking smirk. It's interesting to know that throughout 4 minutes and 28 seconds of your girlfriend dying, there is not a single fucking tear that I've witnessed over here. You know, I've had people that have passed away. That's true and all. But you know one thing that I've always had regarding somebody that's passed away? Is a face full of fucking tears. And don't you get at me with Metal Gear Solid 1 quotes like, "I have no more tears to shed." This ain't a fucking video game. This is reality, buckaroos. Frame by frame, we go through the bullshit. Let me find the truth of the matter. Ah! Cracking a smile at the death of a girlfriend. Isn't that such fucking reality that you've witnessed, boys and girls? God damn.
It was her dream to get 1 million subscribers, so that we filmed for that channel, on that channel. It was her dream to get 1 million subscribers, so...
What? What? The dying wish, get 1 million subscribers. Woo! 1 million. Let's get it. Project Million. Let's do it. At least I know after a dead girlfriend I can warm up with a nice bowl of Campbell soup. I really hope the advertisers on YouTube know where the fuck their ads are going. Jesus Christ. Now, of course, it was followed by the next video saying my last goodbye to my girlfriend Alexia. Rest in peace. Released today. And you know what? There's not much to this other than witnessing the fact that he's created the shrine to an individual that I feel anybody could make at this point in time. But apparently the interesting thing to note is there's some internet detectives I found out that this road was in fact the Queensway. Oh, what is the Queensway? Well, the Queensway is a major road connecting Toronto to Mississauga and just beyond into the land of Etobicoke. Now, if you look around over here, you can actually see that the Queensway, where this allegedly was to happen, is called Queen Street West. In fact, going down and down and down, it actually is the Queensway in the Etobicoke area. And the further and further you go down and down and down and down and down and down and down, it actually splits off into Mississauga, becoming Glengarry Road. Now, this is a very long road. It actually stretches far across through Toronto, meaning that this could have happened anywhere. So you may wonder, well, Muda, this is a drunk driving incident that occurred. Jay has said that this is a drunk driving case that caused the death of this poor girl. Well, you know, I looked around the internet, I looked around for police reports, I looked around for news agencies, and I didn't find a single thing. Now, you might wonder if family members aren't talking about the death of their loved one, if news agencies aren't picking up, like vultures that they are sometimes, about somebody dying in a drunk driving accident, who would actually have the information that someone has passed away? Let me think. The fucking police station! Now, I ended up contacting, Toronto Police Services. I ended up contacting Ottawa Police Services. In fact, I actually have one call that I'm actually allowed to disclose as per an agent of the Toronto Police Services Traffic Department. You know, the one department that knows every drunk driving report that happens, especially in a major North American city like Toronto or Ottawa or any other Canadian city, in fact. Let's give that a little listen, shall we?
No, I don't have anything by that name on the system.
So, in Toronto, nobody by that name specifically has suffered any form of death, right?
No. I have an Alexia, but there's no death in that.
Okay, so as far as the Toronto police know, she is in fact alive.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. No, there was no drunk driving specifically?
Unless there's no drinking and driving incident, no.
Okay, all right, but just to get a clear, can I get your name and badge number, if anything, if it's possible?
Badge number is 9332.
Okay.
Last name.
Thank you very much. So
you're welcome, sir. But there's nothing in that. So what kind of investigation are you doing?
So online there is a YouTube channel that's reporting the death of this individual, right? And they said that they have passed away in a drunk driving incident that's believed to be in Toronto, I think specifically on the Queensway Road, right? I've driven by there. I haven't seen anything. I figured on a major road like that, there would be some form of a news agency reporting on the fatality of an individual. So I couldn't find any report, couldn't find an obituary, and so that's why my last resort was to call the Toronto Police Service and confirm.
Okay, but what kind of investigation are you doing?
I'm confirming if this person is dead or not, or if this person is faking a death.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Have a good day.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
And is it okay, since I'm running a video piece, can I use this call in my video piece? Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you for your time. Take care and have a good night.
You too, bye.
Bye. What you just witnessed was, in fact, the Toronto Police Service not actually confirming to me, a reporter at the time, which at this point I am reporting on something, that they did not, in fact, have any case of drunk driving incidents in this exact area at any given time. So what does that exactly tell me? If you still want to believe that someone has passed away, when the fucking police department, the department's job to log this shit, put it down for records of federal cases, of provincial cases. If you're not willing to believe that, then my God, has the fucking education system failed you? So let's just go further into this hive of debauchery. Fuck! Now, interestingly enough, the only Murano I could find in this case was a 90-year-old woman in the obituaries. No, in fact, I couldn't even confirm the death of this person in obituaries. Yes, just a mere 48 hours later. No family members, no obituaries have confirmed, no police reports. In fact, fucking calling the police stations have not confirmed this. So what actual conclusion does this put me to? J Station has in fact lied and faked the death of this girlfriend of his to the internet without telling us that it's a fucking skit or anything in between. Yes, we have just lied about the death of a human being for fucking views, subscribers, in fact 1 million subscribers on a channel. Now, the legalities of this shit really get to me a whole lot because when you look at the Dream Team subscribers, they're currently at 317,000. They've got a way to go for 1 million. But if you look around real quickly, you can actually clarify real fast over here that they've been uploading 3 months ago. The channel has been formed 2018, so it's an older channel, but they started relatively getting into this 3 months ago. But you want to know something that I found really fucking weird? Is that there's a corporation that goes by the name Dream Team YouTube Incorporated. In fact, it's currently an active corporation with 2 directors. I mean, who could those directors be? Could it be Jay and Alexia? Wow, man, I never really could have figured that one out there. So legality covering this, given that the fact that you're directors in a company that basically houses a YouTube channel, because let's be fucking real here, anybody can figure this shit out. If you fake the death of an individual and writ them off as actually passed away, then you would come across a situation where legally you could be really fucked by the Canadian Revenue Services and the federal government right there and then. A pretty bad legal issue right there and then. Interestingly enough, one of the interesting things that I like to cover over here is complete and utter bullshit. Now, given somebody that has actually passed away, this is coming from a Twitter account known as Thunderwave5, who posted, "This is disgusting. The fact that J Station ripped off the thumbnail of Grandpa's Kitchen when he passed away makes me sick." Oh, but has he? Well, if you look at 2 months ago, somebody's channel by the name of Grandpa's Kitchen had this thumbnail, an individual that has passed away, apparently, an emotional and heart-touching final journey. But you want to know something about his thumbnail? Look at the fucking clouds! They're the same fucking clouds! The only thing different is the hue of the sun! Holy shit! We couldn't even make an original thumbnail for the death of an individual! What the fuck? Okay, but you know what, Muda? Calm down. You need to be tranquil when you're making one of these videos. You know, this shit really, really hurts me. This shit really gets to me on a whole basis. I'll never make another J Station video again because, you know, 3 a.m. videos I could handle. You know, fucking catering to like embryos I could handle. A lot of douchey stuff I could handle. Faking getting mugged I could handle. The etiquette shit, not so much. But this stuff really gets to me because I have actually had someone that I once cared about pass away in such a manner. You know, drunk driving incident, head-on collision, no fucking life left. And you want to know something? I left that entire thing on red. I couldn't communicate with the individual. When you die, that shit's fucking final. It's over. So I don't know if I was suffering something like PTSD. I don't want to say it like that, but I genuinely thought about this shit overnight. I lost sleep. I won't deny it. I felt genuinely sad for Jay. I really did. Because in my fucking heart, I believe that this man couldn't fake the death of an individual that he fucking loved. But, oh, lo and fucking behold, I guess I was wrong. I guess the world fucking went over my shoulders and I was just an idiot. I guess I'm a fucking moron, aren't I? Because people can lie about the deaths of their individuals. People can lie about this shit. People can lie. People can aim to profit. People can manipulate 12-year-olds. People can do this. I'm a fucking idiot. I get it. I'm a dumbass. I'm a moron. You know what? I understand it. I think I've gone crazy. Honestly, I'm just fucking drunk right now, but that's the reality of the situation. Holy shit. I cannot believe Jay has actually done this. It's without a doubt one of the most disgusting and filthiest things that I have seen on this platform. And the fact that Jay is still on YouTube uploading videos, having that bullshit monetized and getting out there almost puts me in a situation where I kind of just don't even want to fucking upload anymore. I honestly just want to like walk away I want to like leave. That's it. To me, it feels like a fucking endgame scenario. The fact that I'm sharing server space with this kind of fuckery honestly hurts me. My brain is literally fucking melted right now. I've never been so fucking livid in my life. I am disappointed. I am angry. I am sad. And I feel most of all stupid falling for this shit. Never in my life will I ever fucking trust someone who cries wolf this fucking hard and does this kind of shit. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I can really say. Make your own conclusions of what it is. But to me, I personally feel that this is an illegitimate thing. And if tomorrow, in 24 hours, 48 hours, this girl has been known as somebody that's passed away, guess what? I will remove this video. I will accept some form of defeat. But you know what? That's a fucking fairy tale scenario at this point. Because when the police are confirming my suspicions, when none of this is out there, what have we witnessed? The fact that we just used the death of an individual, the fact that we lied about someone's passing for fucking YouTube views. Just sink that through your head. And Jay, I know you'll watch this video. I 100% know you're going to watch the video. If you're a person, if you're a human fucking being at the end of the day, and you have any form of conscience or any convictions in you left, you will upload a video saying that you lied about this. And then, maybe fucking then, will I have a tiny shred of respect for you. But until then, I hope you realize what you've done is so fucked up that there's almost no coming back from it. It's over. This goes beyond 3 a.m. shit. You know, normally I'm angry, I'm pissed, but right now I just feel like my brain has a drill running through it. And I'm fucking angry. I don't know what to say anymore. I really don't. See you guys later. Today's video is brought to you by an argument I had with a certain individual who said that I wasn't doing my job right, which for those of you who don't know, I'm a video editor. You know, that's how I pay for the strip club and the home. And apparently I didn't do my job right because I ain't investing my money in no Chad-ass Macintoshes. Now, normally I wouldn't really make a video about it. If you use a Macintosh, go for it. If you use a PC, go for it. I don't care. It's a fucking plastic box at the end of the day. But what Muda hates is brand loyalty and trying to defend the fact that you paid a 50% tax on your computer because somebody took a bite out of a fucking apple and sold it to you. Now, brands like Supreme, you know, really high-end brands where you're paying $1,000 for a sweatshirt that's probably made for like $6 in a fucking sweatshop overseas, often baffles me, okay? Because every time I come across these breed of individuals, you know who you are, you know who they are, I always get fucking poor shamed. Oh, Muda, why does it say Twitter for Android? Because at the end of the day, motherfuckers, there's some cheap-ass Android phones, and there are some fucking pricey motherfuckers out there. And guess what? You know, it's not your concern what daddy gets. Now, at the end of the day, all right, I'm sick and tired of getting fucking poor shamed for this shit, okay? So I'm gonna stand up to all the Twitter for Android people. I'm gonna stand up for all the PC neckbeards out there. I'm gonna stand up for every console pleb that you can see out on the market. Because you know what? It's time to stand up to this breed of cancer. Now, before we begin, I didn't fucking buy a Mac, okay? I think it's very evident that I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't go to Apple and do it. But ooh, Muda, how you running that Macintosh? Well, there's a reality to it. See, I'm running it under a virtual machine using Linux. All right. What I'm basically doing is emulating a Mac. And while we get to it, this Mac is better than most of the shit that you can buy from Apple anyways. But that's really the step. See, the build that I'm using here, I like to call it Bisexual Billy. The reason I call it that is Billy the PC here usually is into that heteronormative fucking shit that you see nowadays. Billy here decides to run Linux, decides to run Windows, run Macintosh if Billy wants to run around on the streets naked, fucking screaming at cars. That's what Billy does. That's the Billy PC build. And you know what? There's a beauty to it because Billy can do it all at the same time. Now, Billy is what I like to call a workstation rig, right? Basically, I paid just under some of the highest end Macs that you can get. Well, the Mac, well, not the $8,000 Mac Pro, let's be fucking real, but it's a pretty pricey build that's workstation oriented. And you know, so far and so forth, it's performing a little better than an off-the-shelf Mac that I could get at Apple. See, one of the things you gotta learn here is if we can go on a fucking safari, boys and girls, all right? I mean, if we're on the Macintosh, might as well use their fucking lineup, right? Now, as you can see, all right, they're trying to sell me an iPhone 11. I'm okay with the iPhone 11. Hell, I bought a couple in my life. I even bought an iPad. It's the Mac category that I care a lot about. And when you go to the Mac category, whew, what is this? MacBook Pro, the best for the brightest. Ooh, let's buy it. Let's see how bright we are. Ooh, let's go into that. 16-inch or 13-inch? I knew, man. I'm gonna have to think about it. I mean, bigger the better, right? Let's go for it. 2.3 gigahertz, 8-core processor. Like, I'm not shitting on no AMD fellers out there, but let's be real here. Even AMD guys know that that's not the card you want for a fucking 2.7K laptop, let's be sure. But Muda, it's got an Intel i9 2.3 gigahertz processor, turbos up to 4.8, Radeon, I can't get over it, 16 gigs of RAM, and a terabyte storage. And you got a Retina display and Touch ID. Well, goddamn, buckaroos, you're really stepping in that fucking market category, aren't you? But you know what else? I want to go to that Pro side real quick, so let's fire that back up real quick. You can either get the Rack or the Pro. The Rack isn't available, so let's go see the Pro. For $6 fucking grand, all right, they give you a 3.5 gigahertz, 8-core Intel Xeon W processor. Can I just remind the audience real quick that that processor isn't exactly the most impressive shit out there? See, at the end of the day, that processor that you can get, there are desktop processors out there that give you more bang for your buck. This is like a little old in my opinion. Don't let the name fool you or anything. Just benchmarking this aside, maybe specialized workflows would be better, but for the most part, an off-the-shelf processor you're getting, usually the highest end, is a little bit better than this shit. Don't let them fool you. Oh, but Muda, if you pay $7 grand extra, they give you the 28-core Intel Xeon. They make Ryzen Threadrippers that put this shit to shame, boys and girls. Remember that. For less price, and there are Ryzen builds I can get you that cost as much as the fucking upgrade, that are stellar. Oh, but you want 1.5 terabytes of memory? That might be the best price thing they have, 25 grand, believe it or not. But still, when you add everything up, not really. Two Radeon Pro Vegas. Basically, if you go this option, 10 grand, you're getting 4 GPUs because this is a dual GPU wafer. Still, for 10 grand, let's see, used car or fucking 4 GPUs. I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to think about it. You know, NVIDIA is outclassing any of these GPUs anyway, so why the fuck am I going this way? I don't know. 8 terabytes of storage for $2,600. You can go fuck yourself. Oh, an afterburner card for those ProRes codecs. Just use Avid's codecs, all right? Please, don't fool yourself. Ah, but you want the stainless steel frame with the wheels for $400? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I just love burning money. At least give the software for free to make it look like some fucking good deal. But you know what? For $6 grand, is that Mac worth it? Ooh, well, the answer is a surprising no. Now I've been spending some time at the fucking glory hole lately, you know, giving head for nickels and shit, and I managed to get me one of these little crappy Mac Minis that you kind of need a real Mac to build the Mac VM. You don't really, I mean, it's piracy at that point, but I had to get a real Mac to make a little bootable drive. But this pile of shit, that can go fuck itself. And I mean, that's really what it is. This Mac runs better. It's got 16 fucking cores to it, about 24 gigs of RAM, and a very decent AMD Radeon graphic card powering it. I mean, it's better than what you're getting off the shelf for literally 50% less of what I would pay for an actual Mac. Now, Mac users always like to tell me, "Oh, Moody, you ain't doing your job right. You gotta use a fucking Mac device to actually edit your videos." Well, let me guide you through. I've been using some of Premiere Pro, and you know what? Everyone tells me to use this Final Cut nonsense, and I'll just fire it up real quick for all the audience here. Why not? Let's go look around as much as we can. Here we go. Now, you know what? I'm not saying this is a terrible, editing setup. I get if you were, editing your vacation videos, maybe your brother cheaped out on his wedding and told you, you know what? You edit the fucking wedding video, and maybe you might pull a half-decent job out of here. But in the big boy world of video editing, no one uses this Final Cut Pro 10 garbage. They use shit like Creative Cloud, or they use Avid Media Composer, 2 NLEs that are available on Windows anyway. So no, you don't need a fucking Mac anymore. And Final Cut, let me give you a blanket review of it. If I wanted to smash my head against the wall, I would use Final Cut. If I wanted to have the most unintuitive way of editing, I would use Final Cut Pro. And if I just wanted to not do my job properly and go homeless, I would use Final Cut Pro. That's my glaring reviews that you're getting, okay? And you know what? I'm gonna tell it like it is. So now that we've got productivity out of the fucking way, what else? Can you browse the web? Well, yes, we just did that. Can you write Word documents? If you're spending over $2,000 on a product like this, you best fucking bet you can write a fancy-ass Word document. Don't get me wrong. Are you still intelligent after that? Debatable. You know, I still consider that to be troglodyte status. But hey, what am I? But a fucking poor-ass editor editing on a shitty PC, right? All right, okay, all right. Dude, it's fucking stupid. All right, so gaming on a Mac is entirely possible, boys and girls. In fact, earlier I was playing some Fortnite. So yeah, you got some Fortnite, you got some Minecraft, you got some Roblox, everything a fucking growing boy needs. In fact, I even fired up Steam to play one of my favorite games, Splinter Cell Conviction, and would you look at that? 32-bit applications ain't supported. It's almost like backwards compatibility. You know, that's just a feature. You know, Mac is watching out for you. Who wants to use older programs? Am I right? Move on with the times, kiddos. Now, even more so than that, yes, I know Steam exists, but Apple themselves have a really amazing library of video games that one can actually get their hands on. If you go to the Apple Arcade, they have some fancy new games for you to get into. I mean, you can play amazing games like Shadow the Tomb Raider, which is great, by the way, amazing. But given what Mac sells you as hardware, I doubt you could even max this game out properly, you know, without PC hardware kind of fucking powering it. Oh, hell yeah. Jelly Juice? Sign me up, dude. I always want to play a sweet, juicy Match 3 game. At least the download speeds are fucking decent. To think there's somebody who actually actively plays this game really hurts me deep inside on an actual level. I'm not going to kid with you on that. This is actually fucking depressing. All right, let's just wipe that shit out of the fucking inventory real quick. Of course I want to delete that garbage. Now, something that always cups my butt cheeks about Macintosh devices is I like to consider them the Fisher-Price of computing. You know, Macs are designed, I think Apple considers the basic audience for this to be fucking fetuses, because there's like 17 different windows a person has to go through to do something on a Mac that you could do in a command line on Linux, or like one window on Windows, ironically. But ladies and gentlemen, the thing that I cannot stand with this device is how much it treats me like a fucking child. Look, Apple, if I want to buy a product for $2 grand, yes, I've done it, but if I want to change a basic setting, I shouldn't have to click the padlock, enter the password, change a bunch of settings around, close the padlock, You understand? Already we've went through like 17 steps that we didn't fucking need, but here we went through it, all right? And that's just what it comes down to. See, I like to consider the entire system for babies. Anytime you want to do power user activities, you're probably going to have to go through like 20 setup phases to actually do it on an Apple product compared to other products out there. Listen, Apple, I'm a big boy now. Trust me, I know you're watching out for me. I get it. But I think I know how to use a fucking computer these days. Don't worry about it. And you know, it's okay if they design that shit for grandmothers, but just give me an option when I start the computer. Ask me, do I know about computers? Or do I not know about computers? Okay, if I answer that I know, don't fucking stop me every step of the way. Now, everyone always tells me, oh, Muda, but Macs aren't slow. Yeah, this VM ain't slow, but you try picking up some off-the-shelf garbage from them, like the lowest-end Macs, ooh, you're going to get some slow systems. The other thing that people tell me is Macs don't get viruses. You're wrong, okay? Macs do get viruses. In fact, I made a video all about it at one point. You see, ladies and gentlemen, just because you're 5% of the market doesn't mean you're impervious to viruses. I use Linux, which means I'm like 1% of the fucking computing race that uses that shit on a daily basis. But I could still get a nasty package or a virus. See, the easiest way to get a virus is to do dumb stuff. If you're downloading stupid crap like, oh, here's Minecraft for free, you're probably going to get a malware on your computer, and that could happen to anybody, okay? See, the best defense against a computer virus is to not be a fucking troglodyte. And you know what? If you are, whatever you're using, you're still going to get malware. So next time, if you tell me that, and you're downloading your Mac cleaner virus, and it suddenly steals your files, don't be telling me that twice, all right? Because I'm I'm just telling you as it is, homeboys. Just for argument's sake, I'm gonna like neo-fetch this shit real quick so everyone thinks that I'm not a fucking liar. This is in fact a Macintosh. I did run Final Cut for you. That is real. It is 100% real. Don't let this doubt you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, all things considered, I don't despise Macintosh devices. I heavily despise them, actually. That's one of those things. I think these are sort of the supreme of computing. You know, there's not really much gain to have from a Mac anymore. You know, I get people who are going to say, but I like the software. I really like it. That's cool. That's fine. But at least for the love of God, admit that you're buying a product for brand rights instead of the actual quality of the product at this point. Because honestly, at this point, Apple fleeces the shit out of the computer so hard that you're paying almost, I would say, 50%, even more in some cases, for the tax on their hardware just because it's branded Apple. Their operating system is okay. But honestly, everyone's already caught up and doing shit better than Apple anyways. At this point, this company used to kind of innovate. Now they sort of ride the coattails. And I get it, Macs aren't as popular as the iPhones and iPads of these days, but that still doesn't give them a right to price these things so far up. They're trying to cater to markets that have already dropped them far behind. Like I said, this video was bred from an argument, and it's an argument that I wanted to shut down. But ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you had a laugh. And you know what, if I offended Apple people out there, I get it. If you like Apple, hey, by all means, go for it. It's your right. But if you're a fucking vegan about this shit, telling me that it's God's grace to the world, I'm gonna shut that shit harder down than anything else. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mudahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I have to sneeze, so I am out. Hello, guys and gals. Today, I'm being blackmailed, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this video is pretty serious. Let's walk into the reality of it. I'm actually being scammed right now is what's going on. And this is a scam that I think a lot of people know. The only reason I'm talking about it is because I've had close friends in real life message me about this, asking how they can escape out of this. Can they use super hacker powers to escape it? And the reality is, it's all nonsense. And I figured I might as well cover it for you guys because I feel like it needs to kind of be talked about. I think a lot of us have gotten this email. So let's go in and read one of these out. Actually, before I do this, I think some Nigerian prince wants to leave me like, what, $20 million? Well, goddamn, my late relative, Mr. Carlos. Well, I guess I ain't really as Indian as I thought, huh? Now, this email right here, which I've actually censored just a bit out, actually details, it actually starts with, I won't ask again, and then it gives you like an old password you had. Now, before we continue, ladies and gentlemen, always use a different password for every single site you go to. It's just common, you know, security practice, especially in today's day and age. Make sure to two-factor authenticate whenever you can, all that basic stuff. So basically how they scare you is they dig up an old password, which if you ever had a database hack, which happens quite often really, a lot of companies will have their databases hacked into, leaked out on the internet, decrypted, and that's how they get a bunch of passwords. So if your account ever gets hacked, it's not because some hacker sat down and brute forced a password, it's because they looked at an old archive that was leaked somewhere else, found a similar email address, tried it on another website, and lo and behold, you've had similar passwords. I've been guilty of it, and I've changed it around you know, here and there, so that's kind of how it goes. Muda, how am I going to have different passwords? Well, you know, you can try a billion different methods, dude. The notepad trick always works, if you ask me. But let's go read this email. So I won't ask again. Hello, I know your password is, you've got infected by my malware, RAT, remote administration tool, which is a real thing, by the way, but you weren't hacked by a rat, let's be real. While browsing the web where my iframe was placed, in the background you got redirected to my exploit pack. Your browser wasn't patched, so you got infected. Yeah, they watched all that CSI, all those 3 seasons of Computer Hacker Galore, let me tell you. The malware gave me full control over your computer and access to all your accounts. See password above. You got that off of a leaked database. Don't act like you're, you know, don't act like you're acid burn and crash override, my guy. It's not happening. It was also possible to turn on your webcam. You can Google about rats and their functionalities. I collected all your private data and recorded you through your webcam, satisfying yourself. Now, ladies and gentlemen, might I ask, my face is all the way up here, so I have to get up, you know, about 2 feet before you start seeing some, you know, some dick, so it's not going to happen. But after that, I removed my malware to not leave any traces. I can send the video to your contacts over email, post on social network, and everywhere else, and publish all your private data everywhere, including the darknet. Oh boy, where the sick people are. Oh man. if my grandma ever catches me jerking off to Roblox, oof. Ooh, that actually would be the death of me. Holy shit. Only you can prevent me from doing this. To stop me, transfer exactly $800 in Bitcoin. If you don't know how to buy Bitcoin, Google how to do it. You can buy it from Paxful and Coinbase, which are Bitcoin exchanges you can find on the internet. You can send directly to my wallet or create your own wallet here and send to mine. It's actually reading like a really shitty sponsorship. The Bitcoin wallet right here. Copy and paste my wallet. It's case sensitive. After receiving the payment, I will delete all your data. Oh, will you? Oh, really? Well, fuck me. You'd get rid of all of the blackmail evidence? Well, goddamn, you're the nicest criminal out. You're the most honest to God criminal out there. Now, they gave me 3 days time, which, by the way, it's already been more than 3 days. So if there's a video of me jerking off to Roblox anime good stuff, then maybe. But let's dive a little deeper. There's actually a lot of emails that are out like this. In fact, they all come in the same exact formatting. Like over here, I've been called video of me masturbating. Well, I mean, if we can spell the fucking word masturbating right, then then I'll probably give you some money. Who knows? It's the exact same thing. They even gave me 3 days time. Everyone has videos of me jerking off to Minecraft porn. Okay, it's not a real shock. Jesus Christ. Okay. All right. Now you might be wondering, well, Muda, is that really all the emails to see on the internet? Well, we're actually going to go a little bit further into it, okay? So they actually gave us a Bitcoin address. Now what we're going to do is kind of see what this Bitcoin address leads to and how much money is actually transferred to. So you can actually do this pretty easily. If you go to like many of these Bitcoin wallet history, just Google that real quick. You can actually find a site known as Blockchain Explorer or Bitref or Bitcoin Who's Who. There's plenty of sites to do it. It's not that hard to get into. And you can enter a Bitcoin address into many of these websites and kind of see who's behind the address. So if I can paste that real quick, let me just grab that fast. So copy and drop that in here. One here, and one here, I guess. So let's just go through all of these real quick. Now this takes us to a Bitcoin wallet address that actually has some money transferred to it. Now this gives us the history of what's going on here. So this wallet was created 2019-06-25, 25th of this month actually. So 3 days ago this was created. And they received some Bitcoin. Now they received $1,467. So evidently this works. They got more than what they expected apparently. And you can see this right over here real quick. So the address is 15DUT. They were given money from one Bitcoin wallet address to this one in particular. I guess these are the ones that do exist, giving weird amounts. Basically, we're talking thousands upon thousands of dollars are being sort of transferred here. Now, what this wallet does, you can see from over here, the red arrow is money that this account is transferring to. Green is what is transferring to this account. The red transfers to two accounts, and they transferred $1,473. Now, they transfer to accounts over here which contain 101 US, and then another account that contains is it the same one actually? Is it the same one? They were given like 1370, which was transferred to then another account. So there's some Bitcoin money laundering going on. But like everything related to money, it always leaves a paper trail, one that we're able to expose like this. And by the way, if the IRS wanted to look a bit into this, they could probably find out who's behind this Bitcoin wallet address. If they wanted to, many agencies can if they feel like doing so. Over here, we can actually see the balance still being transferred on this website. And the moment they receive money, they take it out. So the final balance is still 0.00000. This is, again, to clean the Bitcoin. It's almost laundering, if you will, of the Bitcoin era. Over here, you can see that transactions to output transactions, wallet name, all that good stuff. So you can pull up histories right over here and see exactly who they're transferring to. And by going over to these accounts, let's just dig a little deeper and see how much money was really transferred. One of the things you can pull up is on the 25th, some of these accounts are recipients in Bitcoin address scamming. And some of these have actually been given full scam reputation. So if you pull up their accounts, you can actually see that they've been giving full-on scam recipients. And that's why they are actually going through auditing right now. Here it is. Account is the recipient of a confirmed sextortion Bitcoin scam, which is what has been happening or what I'm being threatened with. So exactly, there's a scam going. Now, how much money is being earned from this? Let's look at it real quick. By going to the end of the rabbit hole real quick, let's look at one of these accounts real fast. So this account right now, let's just get the address on the Bitcoin Who's Who so we can just roughly get an idea. Can I copy that real quick? Not search for it. Let me just do the right. Oh God, dude, trying to Google cap this is just terrible. Here we go. Here we go. It's actually transferring money to other accounts around 940. So they ended up, so when I followed the paper trail going from that scam account, it actually ended up right over here to this Bitcoin address, which is where 3.16 Bitcoins have been transferred to. So if you actually Google that up real quick, BTC, it's giving me like longitude and latitude. Can I speak tonight? BTC to USD, you're looking at 37,000 US dollars. So if you're wondering, does the scam work? Evidently it fucking does. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, there are Bitcoin transactions happening right now. You're being scammed tens of thousands of dollars. This is a fucking federal crime, by the way. Not only is it extortion, but it's complete. It's a full-on scam. And I figured I might as well sit down and kind of expose this. So most people who come across this can understand that nobody has your shit. If people are sending you the same generic scam letter, they're just scamming you. And it's leading out to this. So don't be careful with your money. Don't give $800 away, ladies and gentlemen. This video, I really hope ends up being shared a bit. Like I hope it kind of blows up in this situation so that these accounts can be more investigated thoroughly. Like this account that I'm viewing right now isn't being drawn into, but it's had its money sent to it from registered scam accounts, which is a red flag right now. You can't launder this money as effectively as you want. I'm going to find out where this paper trail ends. This account transfers to more accounts. And that account has 6.33 Bitcoin going around. So if you Google just how much that is, even in Canadian, you're looking at almost $100,000. And the rabbit hole keeps getting even deeper than that. This account, ladies and gentlemen, if we can just Google it real fast. This account is transacting, we're looking at tens of thousands of dollars. Constantly, ever since the 28th. So since the 28th, it seems like this is the master account that's headed to with all of this money. And they're sitting on quite a bit, ladies and gentlemen. They've got, they might not have a scam alert right now, but it's going to take a while for it to get to, ladies and gentlemen. It's a rabbit hole, that's for sure. It's a pretty lucrative rabbit hole, like, Christ. So, ladies and gentlemen, what have we learned today? It's a very simple scam email that you get sent. And I hope if you ever come across something like this that you have never given your money to it. And now that you've at least seen this, learned about it, hopefully laughed at it a little bit, definitely learned about it. I hope none of you fall for this shit ever. And if you have people that can fall for this, because not everyone's computer intelligent, dude. Like, how many people do you think know about Bitcoin wallet histories? Not very many. Lead them to this video, or at least just tell them about it, so people don't end up giving their money as scams to this kind of stupid stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It needs to be stopped at its core. This is a scam that has finally been exposed. So I hope the accounts that haven't received a scam warning on them, that have been dealing with this, get properly audited by authorities and whatnot, because this money is wrong. It's preying on people, and that is what I'm completely against, ladies and gentlemen. That's fucked up shit. But that being said, I'm gonna back out of this, ladies and gentlemen. I've had a good enough time looking into it. I've been blackmailed, so to speak. Complete nonsense. But that being said, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like if you dislike it, Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and as you all know, I'm a Linux guy, okay? And every time I make a video about Linux, I always have to talk about how much I despise Windows. I made a video a couple weeks ago where I talked about why you should switch off from Windows, okay? Generally, I use Windows in a virtual machine, and there's a couple reasons for it. Before anybody goes in, but Muda, you're paranoid. The reason I use software in virtual machines, stuff like Microsoft Windows or Mac OS, is frankly, I need these operating systems to do things like play the latest and greatest games, edit my videos, do a bunch of things. But I know that if I only need it for a couple activities, sometimes it's better to spin up a virtual machine, do my thing for an hour, close the virtual machine, and go back to an operating system that actually is under my control, which is Linux, okay? Various flavors. I use Mac as well. Instead of going to Apple and buying a Mac, I can actually build a better virtual Mac than whatever Apple is selling me and use it to edit videos and do other things. You don't believe me? I've made plenty of videos in the past where I've built the Billy Rig. Now, I actually have another video coming up with the best home build that I've ever come up with, okay, where I've created the ultimate computer, but that's going to be sometime later this month. Now, this video is inspired a lot by Linus Tech Tips, okay? I consider Linus Tech Tips to be one of my favorite channels on YouTube. In fact, when it comes to the tech field out there, these guys are usually pretty awesome. They make good stuff, and it is what it is. Now, Linus made a video series last month, and basically concluding 3 days ago, where he covered Linux, okay, using it as a daily operating system. Now, if you look over here, he's got some serious views on this, okay? In fact, the first video that came out, 2.4 million views. The second, Simple Tasks, 2 million almost. Video 2, 1.5, 1 million. Of course, these are views that Linus would expect. But for something Linux related, this is big. It caused ripples, okay? The Reddit boards were filled with it. The community was all there. I even covered some of this in a couple of videos ago. Again, where I was talking about why you should stop using Windows. Now, to understand, Linus wasn't exactly having a great time with this entire endeavor, okay? There were a lot of problems to be had. But I think generally the experiment was good. Now listen, I'm going to start off by saying the Linux community, and a small chunk of you act like fucking vegans of the computing industry, okay? I'm just going to be real with you. Sometimes when it comes to Linux, people cannot shut up that they use something like Linux. In reality, Linux is just another operating system, actually GNU plus Linux if we're going to be very anal about it. But generally, this is a free open source solution that you and I can download. It comes in various flavors, and once you get it downloaded and ready to go, it might need a little tender love and care, but generally, if you know what you're doing, you can actually get a pretty good computing experience out there. In fact, I would say for most tasks, web browsing, making documents, doing boring stuff, Linux is basically all the way there, okay? But when it comes to niche things like playing video games or editing videos, Linux may not be there entirely. So let's go through this entire video gauntlet and just cover a few points that Linus had made that I really want to granularly get into. Now, the first endeavor starts off with Daily Driver Challenge Part Uno. Now, in this one, both Linus and Luke picked two different Linux distributions. Luke picked Linux Mint, which I would recommend for people who are jumping in. It runs really good on my laptop. No complaints there. Linus went with something called Pop! OS, okay? If you don't know what Pop! OS is, it's a Debian-based Linux distribution that seems to be pretty popular with the gamers these days. Now, I've used Pop! OS in the past, and generally I've had a fucking dogshit experience with this distribution. Not for the sake of me messing up, but just generally this felt like an inferior OS compared to other Debian-based systems, particularly in the software department. Again, that's just my experience. Linux distributions are like ice cream flavors. Some people like certain flavors, some people don't. When I recommend things like Ubuntu in my video, it's because I generally believe that's a pretty easy distribution for people to jump on, install, and use for the general public. Now, in actual Linux usage, I use something called Arch Linux, okay? This is Arch right here. You might have heard it as one of the hardest forms of Linux out there. It's really not. The installation might seem daunting, but in general, I use this because I generally don't like to have a lot of bloat on my system. I just install the software that I need, and I can manage Linux very well, which means as a power user, Arch is absolutely wonderful for me. This has been the stable distribution that I've ever used in my life, okay? But that's a whole story for a different time. For instance, he showcased the installation process as being pretty simplistic, okay? He went through a bunch of next options. I even showed this in my video. Both of them had an easy install process. When it came time to installing certain pieces of software, that's where we had the bombs go off, okay?
Pretty low. Oh. Hey, there we go. Hello? Oh. Oh, wait, what? Did I manage to completely nuke my desktop environment, like my GUI?
See, what's happening over here, chat, is if you look real close, Linus doesn't have a desktop environment anymore. Linus does not have a graphical user interface. This is Linux without any clothes on, naughty girl that it is. Linus has to enter a login like the old-fashioned days and a password like the old-fashioned days. Right now, he's hitting the world of hackers, except instead of a Gibson, he's basically hacking his brain cells right now, trying to figure out what's going on. And no one should be blaming Linus. I actually saw a few tips about it where like, Linus is perfectly screwing things up on purpose for drama. And in reality, he didn't, okay? What Linus had actually done, if we go like 30 seconds back into the video, is make a crucial mistake that is often overlooked by people just switching into Linux in the first place. So here, Linus wasn't able to get Steam installed through the graphical user interface. What he did was he actually went into the terminal like we're seeing over here. Now, inside this section, it says, yes, do as I say. So Linus has to type this phrase out for Pop! OS to do this massive command, which is install and remove packages. Now, we're going to use some reading over here and read exactly what Linus did wrong. Warning, the following essential packages will be removed. This should not be done unless you know exactly what you are doing. Pop Desktop, Pop Session, GNOME Control, Zorg, GStreamer. If you get rid of these packages, you're gonna lose your desktop environment. This explains why 30 seconds ago we saw Linus at a bare naked login shell. Now, of course, it could be helpful if Pop! OS decided, hey, maybe not remove these essential packages. Maybe they should color code this in the terminal to be like full on red. I think anybody that's used to seeing some warnings probably goes through really quickly. I know for Windows stuff, I just generally click yes and go on forward. It happens to the best of us. Linus making this mistake, yes, he didn't read it, and he caused himself to have a bad time. But generally, if you're going to make an operating system that's designed for if you're going to make an OS that's designed for the general public to get in first and get their feet wet, maybe, just maybe, you should put a lot more safeguards into people possibly deleting their desktop environments. And what's basically going on here is some dependency error between programs and packages. That's about it. Now, I'll see this kind of stuff happening in like Arch Linux or Manjaro, but generally less than I would see in like Debian-based operating systems like Ubuntu and Pop! OS. This is something that's probably more Pop! OS related if I'm going to be honest with my own biases, but this is something that you're probably bound to come across. Now, that said, when you use something like Mac and Windows, I don't believe Windows allows people to just delete their desktop environment. Unless certain applications could delete Explorer.exe out of nowhere and prevent you from accessing the Start menu, that would be bad design. That would be a bad time. That would actually be a security issue. Same with Mac. If Mac allowed any application to delete its desktop environment and all of a sudden Granny's trying to figure out where the beach ball is, we're gonna have a bad time. This is something that Linux can allow you to do, and while it's kind of cool from a power user perspective, obviously for somebody new jumping in, you can imagine how this is going to be frustrating. Now, Luke didn't have this time with Linux Mint, so he had a much more easier experience as far as I was able to see. And of course, Linus actually made this work for himself in the end by switching to another distribution known as Manjaro, one that I've shown you in the past. And of course, he probably should have used this to begin with, but it highlights an issue, is that with Linux, unless you're using the right maintained distributions, sometimes you'll have an issue with one distro that probably won't be reflected in the others. And this is an issue. This is something that needs to be fixed, but I'm glad they actually showcased this. Now, of course, moving on to the next video in this entire situation was trying to do simple tasks on Linux. Now, this is a really interesting video where Linus and Luke covered how to do simple tasks. Not gaming, not nothing. Things like making Word documents, compressing files, moving files between folders, taking screenshots of your desktop, you know, basic shit. And basically they gave each other 15 minutes to do each task, and for the most part each of them did their tasks really well. The real difference in this entire video is how Linus and Luke challenged themselves and how differently they did tasks. Linus, for instance, did tasks entirely different than Luke did, especially when it came to like signing PDFs. Linus was trying to do it the right way by finding cryptographic keys. Luke found the awesome way of just copy-pasting an image onto another image, which, hey, for the most part works real well, okay? God damn. Now, I think this is really cool. In order for you to sell Linux to people, you have to be able to do basic stuff like this. And it was interesting seeing them actually succeed. For instance, they even got a printer working absolutely flawlessly, which, even under Windows, may I remind you, causes me some grief. But generally, this is where Linux is right now. If you're not doing stuff that's niche, you're probably going to have a generally good time utilizing Linux and probably not even identifying the key differences between Windows, Mac, or Linux in the first place. Remember, for the average Andy out there that has no idea about what's going on in their computer, if you honestly gave them the same wallpaper amongst all three operating systems, and you gave them a web browser that's open, I honestly believe that somebody that's computer literate will actually identify between each three operating system, until of course they're actually installing pieces of software, which even in that case can be questionable. Now, a while back, obviously in that Ubuntu video where I showed you where you shouldn't use Windows, I showed you how to download Steam and Discord from the web interface, from the web app, from the actual web browser, and install it that way. Now, that's the wrong way to do it, okay? Now, the reason I showed it to you like that was generally, if you're going to be installing software on your operating system, it has to be pretty fucking easy. For instance, with Mac, which I believe is the gold standard of ease of use, all you have to do is go to Steam, for instance, on a Mac, download the DMG file, click on it on your download folder, copy the Steam to the application folder. Sometimes they even have a cool graphic in the installer to make it super easy. Then you run Steam and you install your games. Honestly, it does not get easier than that. With Windows, you download an exe file, you launch it, and you call it a day. The right way to install Steam, for instance, on a Linux device would be to open up a terminal. Would be to type sudo, for instance, sudo being the super user command. Pacman. Pacman in this case is the package manager. For something like Ubuntu, you would use apt, but I am using Arch Linux, so Pacman is mine. Then you give it an argument like -S for, installing the package, and then space type in Steam. So of course you pass your root address because you're doing a system-wide change. Then you install Steam the right way, okay? Now again, for somebody who's new to the entire system, this might look daunting already. But that's something that Linux has covered for you. There's a lot of applications like Discover, for instance, where you could open up a GUI, type in the word Steam, and install it that way, okay? And it's pretty simple to manage things in this fashion. You want to install Discord? Same thing right here. Change Steam to Discord. And if the package exists, you can, terminate that. You can download Discord just as you would easily. In fact, this is ideal because usually when you install packages like downloading an exe file from a website on Windows, you may subject yourself to things like MITM attacks or potentially downloading that same software but with a little added malware. This is software you're downloading from a repository that's been checked by people for malware. So this is the safest way to do things. Of course, to somebody who's jumping in, they might consider this confusing. But that's the thing with the command line. It might seem hackerish, but once you figure out how these commands work, once you've done things enough, this will all start gelling with you. That's not to say this is the easiest, smartest way to do things. So when it comes to installing operating systems and dealing with things, this is another thing I wanted to cover. Windows is a gold standard, okay? Basically all you do is you go to Microsoft's website, download the ISO file, burn it to a flash drive, put it into a computer, install it, click a few times, and it's good to go. Driver-wise, Windows will fetch them from their update servers, and if it doesn't, you can go to the vendor for the hardware that you have, download a driver, and generally it works. Windows' solution is ideally what you want for a system that, frankly, for systems that come in various different, permutations, right? Various different graphic cards, processors, whatever you want to call it. This is a system that works. People can easily do things. It's sometimes better than what Linux offers. Now, of course, with Linux, a lot of the stuff is built into the kernel itself. So when you install Linux, and let's say you want to use a PlayStation 4 controller, right? You connect it with a flash drive, or sorry, not a flash drive, but a USB connection to your computer, and suddenly it just works, literally out of the box. Seriously, go try it for yourself. You can even use a little touchpad as a mouse, as a little mouse thing. So generally, Linux does have things for it. Now, of course, certain pieces of hardware may be so unique that you probably do need to download drivers, and Linux usually has that covered. There's a guide somewhere available, but in cases like that, nobody can say that it's as easy as Windows. See, for this to work and for this to be more widely accepted, Linux has to become easier. I generally think for Linux to win in a lot of cases is to have a distribution that's as easy to manage and install as Windows. And that may not be something that's readily available for a while. And I think for the community watching in the Linux camp, if you want people to jump into this world, you need to make it as easy as you can. When it comes to user interfaces, the easier it is, the better, okay? Calling somebody a troglodyte because they managed to fuck something up on Linux is not the answer, okay? If Granny is trying to install software and she messes it up because the user interface wasn't clear with her, that's the UI fault, okay? That's the OS fault. If you're gonna design software, okay, it has to basically work, all right? It has to be as painless for the user as possible in order to help adoption. Okay, that's generally the vibe that I go with. And hey, look, with Windows 10, I hate the fact that every time I update key system components, I'm basically blanked out to a giant blue screen looking at this fucking spinning wheel. With Linux, there's obviously the benefit of typing in this one command, depending on what distribution you use, obviously, and updating your whole goddamn system with ease in the background while you actually use your computer for productive tasks, like record videos. So look at that, bam, hit yes, it's basically updating the whole system in the background, minimize, call it a day. And yes, it'll actually update the entire system components in the background as well, and it'll only activate them once you restart the package or restart Linux itself. Again, as hassle-free as possible. Now in part 2, Linus and Luke started to use software that was a little bit unsupported, software that was more gaming oriented, things like the NVIDIA X server settings. And actually I think this video they could have went a little harder, but obviously they use things like OBS, which is exactly what I'm using to record this video right now. And it works just like you would on a Windows PC anyways. They also tried using software like Discord and whatnot, and basically all the stuff that gamers would use anyways, Steam, Discord, you call it. And generally, I think it's cool. I think it works. I think it's awesome. I think what they were doing was a general good idea. These are pieces of software that you and me as gamers are probably going to use. And for the most part, things work. Obviously, the way that they install software was a little bit different, a little hazy, but generally they had a pretty solid experience covering this. Now, I think this video didn't do it complete justice, okay? For instance, let's say you do have an NVIDIA graphic card. I have both AMD and NVIDIA in my system. If you're using Linux, AMD is the better solution, okay? A lot of their stuff is built right into the kernel. But if you have an NVIDIA graphic card, you should get the same experience, okay? Generally, Linux is a platform that allows you to be more open and free. And if it comes to the point where Windows has a better experience for one graphic card versus Linux, that's not a good thing. But let's look at Linux for a second. Here's the NVIDIA settings, right? Here, you can get an idea of your thermal systems. You can get an idea of, like, you know, the power that you're consuming. And generally, if you're using things like G-Sync and whatnot, a lot of these features work in Linux out of the box. What doesn't work underneath in Linux out of the box, in certain cases, can be things, and I'm not joking with you, things like HDR. If you have a higher end monitor, you're not going to be able to use HDR underneath Linux. It just doesn't work at the moment. Things like G-Sync work just fine. Things like DLSS work now with some tinkering. DLSS is a huge feature for NVIDIA graphic cards. It allows you to get better frame rates without sacrificing a lot of that visual cost. But things like ray tracing then come into the question, where it depends on how certain games run it. For instance, if the game uses Vulkan for ray tracing, it works under Linux just fine. If it uses DXR or a DirectX version, right now it's in infancy. You can ray trace underneath Linux, but it's not a perfect experience. It's really a game-by-game basis. So what I think is a really great experience here and a really good example is this is Resident Evil Village running underneath Linux. Now I've got VKD 3D, which allows me to actually enable things like ray tracing, which I have right here. Now to show you the real issue sometimes and why it's game-by-game basis is as we load into the game over here, which of course it runs fine. Like we are getting a full 60 frames. The only reason it's hitching right now is because I'm recording the screen and it causes some issues. But here you can see that the BVH isn't even being rendered properly. Like the actual ray tracing is just not working. It's almost as if the game's failing in this regard. And it's not because my computer isn't capable. This is a 3090. So again, if you can look at it real quickly by turning off ray tracing, which again we enable through experimental versions of VKD 3D, which is translating DirectX 12 to Vulkan, now it suddenly works when I turn off ray tracing. Like the actual game renders properly. So again, depending on how recent the game is, how it handles ray tracing, you may have a decent experience or you may not. Whereas on Windows 10 or 11, it just works out of the box, obviously, because that's what the software is designed for. There's also stuff like NVIDIA GeForce Experience and AMD Radeon Relive, which are graphic card tools that have a whole bunch of features tossed into them that allow you to change the clock speeds of your cards or use onboard recording software and streaming software, which just doesn't work on Linux at the moment. There's also software like NVIDIA Broadcast that uses the AI chip on it to actually blur the screen out, maybe remove the background from your face cam, and do cool things like that. That doesn't work underneath Linux at the moment natively. Now in the last video, Linus titled it, Gaming on Linux is Not Ready. Now of course with a title like that, it means some serious business. And you know, he's kind of not wrong. Let's cover into exactly what's happened. So Linus basically gives you the entire idea of playing a bunch of games on Steam, you know, but he also mentions that while Steam is doing a real good job of supporting Linux, there's a little bit of a problem. Obviously, Valve has said when the Steam Deck drops, which is running on Linux, is going to have 100% compatibility with Steam games. They're not including games that you'd find on Epic, which there's a lot of exclusives. They're not mentioning games directly off of Uplay, or things like EA Origins, or various other game launchers out there. See, Linux in that case isn't exactly the best solution. If you're running games off Steam, it's usually as easy as going onto Steam, downloading the file, and hitting play. Usually, if the game doesn't have a shady anti-cheat or a very invasive DRM, usually it just works out of the box. For instance, I was able to play Death Stranding just fine underneath Linux. I was able to play Resident Evil 2 just fine under Linux. I was able to play a lot of games just fine under Linux. Of course, when anti-cheat gets dropped in, that's an issue. But look, listen, let's say you wanted to play something I'm going to give you a good example. Let's say you wanted to play something like Assassin's Creed Origin. Now, I didn't buy Assassin's Creed Origin off of Steam. I bought it off Ubisoft Connect. Okay, I figured, hey, if I'm going to have to stick 2 condoms on to play this game, I might as well just buy the one I need, which is Ubisoft's own launcher. So I can't just go to Ubisoft Connect like I am right now and download it for Linux. It doesn't have Linux support, okay? So if I download it for PC, it's literally giving me an exe file. I can't just use this, okay? So what I need to do is I'm going to use a third-party launcher like Lutris, which is a front end for something known as Wine. I'm going to be using this to help run games from Windows that require launchers and various dependencies easily on Linux. So here I'm going to type in Assassin's Creed Origins, okay? Which, if you look real quickly, and if the site works, you can find that, yeah, they actually have the option right there. So I'm going to click Origins, and here you can see that they've got some patches ready to go. So they have a Steam version for you to just, if you want the Steam version running through Lutris, to work this way. Now the Wine version, which was last published 1 year and 11 months ago, 2 years almost. Now I can just hit the little install button, open the link, and all of a sudden Lutris will fire up real quick, and I can actually start installing Assassin's Creed Origins. So I'm going to hit install, go through this rabbit hole right here, and as long as I follow the instructions, provided the script still works, it should install Assassin's Creed Origins, and I should be able to play this game just like I would on a Windows system. That is, of course, if an update didn't break it. For instance, I was able to play GTA 5 just fine underneath Linux. The problem was, now it's not that GTA 5 is broken, it's the fucking Rockstar launcher. Okay, so when the Rockstar launcher wasn't broken, for a while I couldn't connect to my friends on GTA Online. So yeah, if a game updates in a way where it breaks the Linux experience, you really have to hope somebody in the community can fix up a script or maybe fix up some dependency, or hope blindly that the developer chooses to make it easier for Linux, which they almost never will, because Linux's market share is so small that a lot of developers may choose not to even bother wasting their time. If it works under Proton, congratulations Linux guys, you get to play it. If it doesn't, don't hold your breath out for any developer jumping in to fix it. Frankly, the market cap is so low and the money they would make is so low that understandably it's not worth the hassle. And it sucks to hear that, but it is just unfortunately the reality of the situation. Now, what about games that are super duper popular? Now, I'm not here to say that Twitch TV's like top stream games are indicative of like the popularity of actual video games, but if we look at Twitch right now and just go to browse for a second, let's look at some of the top games at the moment. So let's go viewers high to low. Now, of course, if we skip just chatting, Escape from Tarkov. Unplayable on Linux because of the anti-cheat, BattleEye, at the moment. It just does not work. You won't really be connecting to games as far as I know. GTA 5 works underneath Linux, of course, provided Rockstar's launcher doesn't break. League of Legends does not work underneath Linux. Valorant does not work underneath Linux. Genshin Impact maybe works underneath Linux with a weird install script, but not natively supported. It has kernel anti-cheat, which is usually incompatible. Apex Legends does not work. Warzone does not work. Slots, oh god. Fortnite does not work out of the box. Minecraft, yes it does. Five Nights at Freddy's, yes it does. World of Warcraft, I think it does. ASMR, oh it definitely does. Dead by Daylight, probably. FF, obviously, but you can understand what I'm getting at with. A lot of games in this list, especially the ones that are most played right now, the most popular, usually what your homies are playing, do not work natively underneath Linux. And that's because of crappy anti-cheat. Now, anti-cheat is a component for video games that it's required, just to prevent as many hackers as you can. PC gamers are real naughty when it comes to that. But a lot of these anti-cheats are just incompatible with Linux. And there's probably a good chance the more invasive an anti-cheat is, the more incompatible it is with the entire Linux kernel as a whole. So there are a couple fixes to this. Dual boot Windows, but that would be using Windows natively, and that's not something I like to do. The other option is don't play those games. Again, it's not feasible for most people. Most gamers may want to try some Valorant. They may want to try some Apex. Simply quitting these games shouldn't be an option. It shouldn't need to be an option. The third option, and this is what I do, is run a graphic pass-through virtual machine. Now, I've made videos in the past where I've passed through a graphic card to Windows virtual machines and played games as if they were natively running underneath Windows. Some people have said this is like a cheat. This is a little bit of a, hack. This is not something that you should... It's not real gaming, Muda, underneath Linux if you're using Windows. Which, to be honest, I'm going to say fuck you, okay? At the end of the day, if you're gaming underneath the Linux kernel in any capacity, it's still gaming underneath Linux, all right? Granted, it's a much more, it's a much more complicated solution, I agree, I admit. But it's not something that's impossible. It's the beauty of Linux. You can do a lot with it, and if you know what to do, you can make it bend to you if you really try. Now, in terms of virtualizing Windows underneath Linux, it's also becoming a situation where it's not exactly ideal. Games are coming with more kernel-level anti-cheats, and with kernel-level anti-cheats, they're preventing virtual machine users from even joining the games. For instance, you can't play Valorant right now at the moment. You also can't play games like Rainbow Six Siege underneath the virtual machine unless you hide things really well. But then, you're risking a ban. In fact, here's a little bonus. Here's Rainbow Six Siege running underneath Linux just fine through Proton. You can see the game renders correctly, and it actually doesn't appear to have any graphical issues. Of course, this is with the anti-cheat disabled. The anti-cheat is not able to run underneath Proton or any of these compatibility layers. Again, unless Ubisoft patches it in or allows it, which apparently seems to be a possibility, we're going to be sitting here without Rainbow Six Siege playable online. I guess until Ubisoft or BattleEye flips a switch, which who knows if or when that'll ever be. You also can't play certain titles like Genshin Impact without hiding your hypervisor in some ways. But then you're also killing performance. So there's a billion gotchas to deal with. But this is the route you have to go if you're willing to use Linux as a daily driver. Look, no one said this entire situation was ever going to be easy. But most of these things usually aren't. I'm not here to say Linux is some god-tier difficult operating system to learn and use, but it's got some problems ahead of it. For right now, niche cases like video editing, like, playing the newest, latest, and greatest games, Linux is not number one in that regard at all. If you're doing things like development, web development, real basic stuff, Linux is already there, okay? But for a lot of these niche cases, yeah, watching that Linus series makes a lot of sense. And all the drama that would generate from it because Linus maybe messed up a few things or he wasn't successful is necessarily not even his fault. Listen, he's a guy that's trying to show people the average Andy experience of Linux. People who are going to sit here on video and say, oh, but all you had to do was modify this one file or you had to enter this one command. Listen. We know this because we've used this for years. I know I can work my way around a terminal. But most average people shouldn't need to bring up a terminal. They shouldn't need to open up a GitHub. They shouldn't need to compile software in order to use their operating system in the most basic of manners. Things should just work out of the box. Graphical user interfaces should just exist for a lot of these tasks anyways. There's no reason why Windows and Mac is so user accessible and Linux, in certain cases, can absolutely cause people to lose hair. It just shouldn't be that way. But then again, I'm going to leave this video right here where it's at. I think Linus's series was good, and frankly, I wanted to really air out my entire grievances in this situation too. I wanted to give my take. I wanted to cover a lot of these Linux, hooplas in my own fashion. So let me know what you thought about this video in the comment section below. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out. Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and chances are you probably know one of the largest channels on YouTube, Mr. Beast, 300 plus million subscribers, massive channel, and you probably also know some of the people that appear on Mr. Beast's channel aside from Mr. Beast. One of them being Ava Chris Tyson, who is by far one of the most popular online, but also becoming one of the most controversial online creators. Now, obviously, I'm going to get the elephant out of the room in this situation. Ava is a trans woman, and months ago when, looking into Ava Tyson and the, other creators that have actually made videos on her, people like SunnyV2, for instance. Now, in the last few days over the weekend, it came out with allegations that Chris Tyson was talking inappropriately to a minor, basically making inappropriate jokes with people that were, I believe, 13, 14 at the time. Now, obviously, as an adult, you probably shouldn't be speaking, in any form of candid way like that with a minor. But these are things that I want to seriously look into because these are very life-ruining level of allegations, and obviously I think everyone should take serious care into reporting and looking into this kind of stuff. So I decided to actually reach out to some of the people affected. But the other thing I've noticed on the internet, which I'll mention for fair sake, is because of the trans identity I mentioned at the beginning, this has become a culture war talking point, and you'll find discourse like, this person's Chris Tyson setting the entire clock back like 200 years or whatever. And if your brain is set there, then I think it's best to refocus and look at these individuals as individuals, okay? You can find tons of bad people in every community. That said, there are a few things that I find inexcusable from a personal level, and it's beyond more than just what people are talking about, so let's actually dive in. Now, in this situation, I like to always delve deep into these situations and really try to come to the truth of the matter. And oftentimes, the truth is very nuanced. Now, this actual thing really sparked into the mainstream, where now there's 100,000 plus tweets that exist now. This whole story has become a trending situation on the internet. And one of the actual, spearheads into this was a YouTuber known as Prism42. Now, Prism42 made a 59-minute, 18-second long video going over the, Ava Tyson story, and they actually jumped into showing some actual, screenshots that were pretty wild when initially anybody read, okay? So, in the video that Prism42 had made, they were providing screenshots from Twitter, or X, I guess, and Discord as evidence in this situation. So I decided to look at some of the messages that were showcased, and for instance, in this screenshot, it appeared that this person right here was the actual, victim in question, all right? Alleged victim. All right, this is Lava. All right, I'm just going to use that name for, context purposes. So the messages in question were these, okay? For instance, one of them was from Lava. Check again, CCASYT. Chris posts, I posted some fire nudes for you, please. No share. So, yeah, immediately people looked at some of those messages and were like, whoa, that's sketchy. Ava over here, not $5, pathetic, JK. Wait till my Twitch revenue comes in. So initially when I was seeing this, a lot of the assumptions that this might have been DMs weren't really DMs. Those were obviously public interactions between people. And obviously when it comes to minors and adults on the internet, there should be a pretty hard gap in between these individuals. Now, I decided, in good journalistic integrity, to reach out to this individual, Lava. Turns out they actually reached out to me first. I actually jumped into a call with them, talked about the situation, and they basically told me all the context right here. For instance, there is a rumor about a camping trip where I guess, they met up with the Mr. Beast individuals as a minor. And they had said, my family goes to North Carolina every year for vacation. We stay in a very nice camper at a nice campground. It happens to be 2 hours away from the Mr. Beast studio. And I'd been helping with some Beast gaming videos remotely at the time, instead of doing it remotely, okay? My parents drove me to the studio and met the entire crew. They knew where I was and met the crew before leaving. I helped record some videos and then my parents picked me up and left. This is where the picture is from when my face is blurred, and it was taken at the studio with multiple people there. So anyways, a tweet about a hentai addiction, okay? I don't think I have to explain my audience what hentai is, but I'm sure you can figure that out. At the time, Ava was a very public anime fan. I personally am not. Me too, buddy. The friend group we had just randomly started saying he had a hentai addiction because it was funny and good inside joke. I was never shown any hentai, and there was never an attempt to show me it. Okay, fine. The Coming for America picture was sent to the group chat I was in, and not to me personally. It's just a funny picture. I was never sent anything explicit or asked to send anything explicit, vice versa. I'm not a victim of grooming, and if I was, I would have already come forward. I'm on the internet way more than an average person, and have seen multiple instances of people actually getting groomed. I'm not one of them. Please stop using my name to attack someone. There are real victims of SA and grooming that deserve to have their voices heard. Now, at this moment in time, to be honest with you, I really can't just make somebody a victim if they keep claiming that they are not. And this is one of those things where obviously people had basically started to look at this whole controversial situation and wonder, is this realistically, just an actual really messed up situation? Or is this a possible politicized situation where because of what, Ava Tyson's, personal characteristics are, maybe it's used as a political topic point to make an entire group of people look like, groomers and whatnot, okay? But this is where a similar situation to, Keffels, who I looked at about a month and a half ago. And in that situation, it was really a similar thing where I really had to basically tell the audience, I'm just looking at one bad person, okay? I'm not trying to paint an entire community of people as bad. A lot of people self-report themselves when they don't look at a situation like this pretty critically. Now, that being said, I wanted to provide everything for context here. This also said, if you're in a group chat that intermixes adults with people under the age of 18, minors in this case, you probably shouldn't be deploying images that, state coming for America. That word should never even be uttered. The other thing is, when you got situations like hentai being mentioned as an adult, which you are in this situation, you should shut that down. This kind of stuff is never the fault of a minor, but as an adult, you absolutely have to fucking sanitize your jokes, no matter how edgy you think your group is, especially when you got people under the age of 18. It's just a terrible look. It's disgusting, and there really isn't any way you can spin it to somehow soften the blow. There's a lot of things that I've discovered in this entire situation where it really comes across as Ava Tyson actually being not a great person, okay? So let's get into things that we can actually somewhat reasonably confirm through the power of the internet, Wayback Archives, and so on and so forth. Now, according to, according to Lava, who had actually told me that their interaction with this individual, Prism, was not something that was entirely discussed properly. They actually believed that they were more so applying for a job, from what I understand, versus actually discussing these entire situations. Which, again, if you're an interviewer or you're a journalist and you're not actually being upfront and honest about why you want to interact with the subject in the first place, that's already a big issue right there. So here's the thing. If you want to actually go and, drop some hardcore evidence on people, you probably want to do it in a realistic fashion. Honestly, this is one of those situations where people end up being sued for in a court because of, again, mishandled evidence and mishandled allegations like this. Now, of course, in this situation, I use allegations very heavily because, again, I don't really believe any of these messages on Discord or Snapchat or really anything unless I can actually refresh pages. But, we're already getting too deep into the weeds right now. Let me actually pull you into the next bit of allegations that had popped up about Ava. Now, because of these Twitter messages, all right, immediately I decided, sure, let me go check up, her actual Twitter account. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's completely wiped, which is obviously never a good sign, okay? So the next bit of information that came out was another individual, a different individual that was 14 years of age, came out and showcased a Snapchat conversation with them and Chris Tyson. So immediately looking into this situation, you can see that Ava, Chris Tyson over here, they actually have a video recording showing an actual Snapchat account. So of course, as you open this video up and you actually zoom in, you can see Tyson, let me actually get this is actually a little bit blurry. So Tyson Nos YT, okay? 202,000 followers, vlogger, and so on and so forth. They're there to showcase actual messages, for instance, been stepped up, lol, thanks dad, lol, keep it a secret though, lol. What exactly is a secret? Let me read this. Hey, I don't know if you heard about my bathwater prank and how crazy it's gone, but my stock is actually sold out at the moment. I believe this is in reference to, I think it's Belle Delphine, or, one of the gamer girls' bathwater stuff right over there. Things that you probably shouldn't be discussing with somebody who is under the age of 18. At least I would think. Now, of course, being that this is, again, a video, even if it is a video, I can't exactly 100% verify these messages, right? This is, again, allegation stuff. But it's pretty serious, okay? You know, if people are willing to talk about people like Cody Ko, Dr. Disrespect, then these are things that, again, we all have to cover, especially when we're dealing with one of the largest channels on YouTube. So, again, looking at some of these messages, you got emojis, of course, Dad. This is the best Snapchat I've ever seen. So then there were some messages over here where they were explicitly speaking to a group of people, including, allegedly, one minor.
I know, dude, I would inside of that egg and then watch her eat it, and then watch her have with another man while she comments about how my can never satisfy her.
Whoa! Okay, I'm just gonna cut that right short, okay? You already had me on come inside people, alright? That's not happening in my book. It's a little haram.
I hope he gets cancer in the mouth.
Okay. I gotta say that is one of the not good places.
I hope he goes his entire life not smoking a single cigarette, and then when he gets 80, he just gets with some dude with some cancer. He shoves it in his mouth and gets mouth cancer.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, if there's one minor in there, probably not a good thing to be saying. And of course, they started to also throw up archives of the original screenshot postings over here. For instance, if you look inside, this is an archive link right here by an account known as Young No Name. Now again, in this scenario, for instance, I wanted to see, hey, is this actually valid? Is this somebody's real actual account? And so I decided to look up Wayback Machine archives of this possible Snapchat account. So it turns out that account actually exists right here. It's an Ava Chris Tyson account, actually with 211,000 subscribers. And yes, you can see that this is the original archived thing. Tyson Nos YT. So immediately, you know, where is this account now? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it seems like it's deleted. So according to Snapchat as of now, that account doesn't seem to exist. Now, to me, anytime an account gets deleted like that, especially so quickly after it's been brought into a spotlight, is not something that I personally find, really reassuring, so to speak. That also being said, when it comes to, again, any form of messages like this, especially when things appear to be stories that are publicly posted that are intermixed between what appears to be DMs, which is kind of how I'm understanding Snapchat. I'm not exactly perfect at it. I don't use Snap all that much. And by not all that much, I mean if at all. But the thing about it is, obviously, I haven't refreshed these messages. I don't have them viewed on my device. So everything that I see on the internet, I take with a complete grain of salt in this situation. I think a lot of the interactions in that Discord conversation, if there was a minor present, and that was actually Chris and whatnot, these are not okay conversations or jokes to be making when a minor is present, period, right? So anyways, when I look at messages from all these people, I actually decided to reach out to the individuals in question the best that I can, and it really seems like whatever is actually present really isn't there. Now you might be wondering, okay Muda, that's really what it is, then what's next? Well, what really comes next at this point, ladies and gentlemen, is the darker side. Now, just because these two big things are not exactly substantiated enough for me to make a video on, what I'm about to show you is actually really disgusting, again, from my perspective. Now, to understand this next section, you have to understand an artist known as Shadman, okay? Now, Shadman is a former YouTuber and artist known for creating Rule 34 art, and again, disgusting art, and most importantly, art that some would consider, lowly, for instance, right? Art that depicts younger-looking individuals, okay? Individuals that some would classify would resemble those under the age of 18. Now, this alone is not necessarily something that is completely illegal. In fact, the legality of it is different depending on where you live. I personally don't care much for this art style and find it reprehensible in my personal opinion, but where it gets really, really scary is when you actually come across an individual who has made actual depictions, dirty depictions of actual minors. Now, one of the most infamous characters on the internet is Keemstar. Keemstar has a daughter, and at the time, her daughter, who was 7 years old, Shadman had depicted this individual, in a disgusting manner, okay? A sexualized manner, which, of course, obviously shouldn't have happened. And in fact, friend of the channel, Colossal is Crazy, actually even confronted him on this situation. Listen to this.
Hello? Can you hear me okay?
Hello, Colossal. Yes, I can.
No problem being on the stream. Yeah, apologies if I slur my words a bit. I just kind of got up a few hours ago.
No problem.
All this shit. Let me just be very clear. I was not calling you children. What I did was say what you did by drawing this picture, putting it in context on your website with a bunch of other pictures of little girls was especially considering it's Keemstar's daughter. He doesn't deserve that. Why target his daughter like that? And I felt that was but I'm not calling you a do you understand?
Totally understand. You understand that it was obviously part of like the controversial nature of the picture to post it under such context.
It started off as a controversial joke.
Yes.
You didn't go through with it.
I would have never.
You did draw a picture of Keemstar's daughter in kind of like, obviously she's not. I do feel like there are some connotations regarding that picture. Would you agree?
Totally agree. Yes, totally agree. Colossal, I respect you like a hell of a lot. And just like man to man, if you think it would be better for me to take it down, I would take it down just out of respect to you.
If you could do that, I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm gonna go do that right now. I'm gonna take it down out of respect to Colossal.
I appreciate you doing that.
I'm gonna go do it, and obviously it's gonna be all over.
The picture is already out there,
Yeah.
so.
This is not something that even Ava Tyson will probably disagree. Even Keemstar, who gets in joining talking about this, will tell you that yes, Chris Tyson actually apparently supported this artist Shadman, who drew his daughter at age 8 in a disgusting manner. That's a known fact, according to this Keemstar fella. Privately, me and Chris even had a conversation about this roughly a month ago, as it still upsets me. This is not misinformation. This is a fact, according to Keemstar. So yeah, it is, without a doubt, one of the more disgusting things that, exists. Now, Shadman, since that whole thing, has actually been arrested in Los Angeles for, guess what? Assault with a deadly weapon, as according to this arrest sheet right here. But beyond all of this, okay, Shadman is still back, actually still actively drawing, and this is somebody that has had kind of a connection to a lot of people in the Newgrounds artistic sphere. But we'll get to that in a bit. Now, in regards to Shadman drawing an actual human being underage in a disgusting manner underneath the United States obscenity laws, obscenity is not protected under the First Amendment's right to free speech, and violations and federal obscenity laws are criminal offenses. So while the United States has a, three-pronged Miller test, to go down to obscenity law and minors, federal law strictly prohibits the distribution of obscene matters to minors. Any transfer or attempt to transfer such materials to a minor under the age of 16, including over the internet, is punishable under federal law. It is also illegal to use misleading website domain names with intent to deceive a minor into viewing harmful or obscene materials. For example, using a cartoon character or children's television programs. But in this next paragraph, again, in addition, visual representations such as drawings, cartoons, or paintings that appear to depict minors engaged in activity are obscene are also illegal under federal law. So drawings, cartoons that depict this kind of stuff are obscene and illegal under federal law. Okay, so again, because this never went to a court, obviously I'm just bringing up to show you what obscenity law is and how it's actually not protected and why the legality of some of these images are in question. Point of the matter is, with an artist like this producing content, you probably never want to financially support them whatsoever. Now again, the reason why Shadman was brought up into the story is yours truly, Ava Tyson, posted bonus fidget spinners. Again, I actually have the Wayback Machine link right over here, so no, this wasn't Inspect Elemented, this came right from the actual horse's mouth. Really like to throw in some extra autism at Shadbase. Now, this moment in time, I have to censor a lot of this image because it appears to be somebody that is not the age of 18, somebody that would fit that lowly criteria, so to speak. Now, this was posted all the way back in 2017, so, it wasn't that far off, okay? People were definitely well within their mental faculties. But again, where people get really freaked out about it is when they start to look at frames of older videos on the Beast channel, and they find that, you've got these individuals sitting down, and you got Jimmy staring at what appears to be the same exact image hung up on the wall, okay, allegedly at, Ava's home. Now, it's one thing supporting a pretty terrible artist in that regard. It's another thing hanging up that filth in your fucking house. Now, I think that's a rightful thing to criticize anybody for, and it doesn't have anything to do with their intrinsic characteristics, like being transgender. It has more to do with them being a fucking weird person. So again, because of the scrutiny that this individual gets, what effectively happens was old Reddit accounts started popping up. Now, according to the internet, they'd started to look into older accounts right over here and found that they were linked to a Reddit account known as TysonBoy34. One that we'll find out actually has a YouTube channel later on, and it gets even weirder. So, according to archives that were captured, Tyson Boy would basically just post things like, no second monitor to have hentai constantly playing, not good enough for this boy, allegedly being posted. And of course, you had other things like, Shadman is gonna love this. What would Shadman allegedly love? The Pixar's Incredible 2 trailer. Whoo, that's filthy. For instance, 4chan, right over here on the old 4chan thread, Tyson Boy says, why would you use your VR headset for anything other than 3D? Ooh, that's a little too filthy for the internet, man. 3D, loli, gang. Boom! To me. Now, obviously, some of these are dirtier jokes, but, you know, in the grand scheme of things, again, the one mentioned about Shadman really wasn't something that I was comfortable reading. So, of course, throughout all this, ladies and gentlemen, the next bit that I'm about to show you is probably the reason that I'm even making this video to begin with. Now, one of the things that was posted by Ava Tyson was something alleged to their old YouTube channel where they were sharing revenge, photography photos with their actual audience of famous Nickelodeon star Jeanette McCurdy. So when I saw this in a video, immediately in my head, I have to actually research this before I even run through with it, okay? Because again, with the internet, when you share things around and you don't do a modicum of research or you look up the actual archives, then you are possibly slandering an individual. So to go down this rabbit hole and to prove that the video that you saw in that allegation actually belonged to Chris Tyson, let's go look up things like the MrBeast Wiki, where they actually go to Chris Tyson and they start showing the Tyson YouTube channel. So that one apparently doesn't exist. youtube.com/c/Chris. Okay, so anyways, looking up, again, older accounts, for instance, right over here, I looked up TysonBoy34, again, name pretty similar to the Reddit account. You can see that TysonBoy34 posted a video called Call of Duty Ghost, Dogs Make Me Rage, 28-second clip, and it appears to show who is, Ava Tyson, a lot younger back in the day, 10 years ago. So in this post, you can see that Mr. Beast is posting out LMAO. I know you came here from his channel info. This channel hasn't been used in a long time. So actual interaction from an official Mr. Beast channel. And again, it takes a simple click on this to see that, yes, this is the actual Mr. Beast channel, not some fucking clone. And it's reasonable to assume as well, too, and to go into it, is when I looked at a lot of these big YouTube Wikitubia pages, which again went over, Ava's actual, YouTube profile, their wiki description over here. One of the things that they were also linked to from here was that TysonBoy34 account. Now again, this, with the interaction of Mr. Beast, obviously there is a reasonable expectation that this belongs to Ava Tyson, okay? So when I'm looking through this channel, literally 10 years ago with 85,000 views, Jeanette McCurdy picture leak info plus link. Not looking fucking good, that's for sure. So immediately looking into it, I decided, sure, let's click down, and lo and behold, that appears to be good old Chris Tyson, posted 10 years ago, long before the days of artificial intelligence. So let's listen to what, Ava Tyson back in the day has to say.
How's it going, you guys? So recently everybody's been hearing about the Jeanette McCurdy leak of her photos, and I know a lot of people were wondering about it, so I decided to do this little video to my 20 subscribers that may care, may not care, and if you guys are watching, thank you for watching it. But first off, what the story is, she sent pictures to her boyfriend, her now ex-boyfriend, and he leaked them out, and she is a very popular Nickelodeon star on the show, iCarly, and...
So, before anybody goes, but Muda, he was, young back then. To give an idea, I believe that Ava Tyson was born in 96. I'm 94. So, back in 2014, this would probably mean that they were just turning 18. Yeah, you're looking at somebody who would probably be like 18 years of age at the time, right? When I was young, I knew at the time, okay, uploading, even when I was 16, 18, 20, whatever, uploading images that an ex-boyfriend leaked out of somebody or an ex-girlfriend leaked out falls under what is known as revenge pornography. It is never okay, all right? Just because you are a minor at the time, telling people, hey, go to this link or check this out. Maybe I'm not endorsing it, but I'll definitely link it in my YouTube channel. That's never okay, all right? 100%. It's a shady, disgusting thing to do. And again, for people who are like, but this was 10 years ago, Muda, people change. This is the same group of people that will immediately dogpile me or anybody else for things that they would find in my past to use against me. So yeah, I really don't give a fuck if people are looking up things in the past. And honestly, this kind of shit doesn't age well, okay, at all, all right? It's disgusting back then, it is known to be disgusting back then, and it is disgusting now. Let's listen more.
Sam and Cat. And so first off, what you'll probably be seeing is the pulling of the show. It'll probably be taken off the air. Second off, you'll probably see the photos get taken down at some point tonight, maybe tomorrow, because Nickelodeon has that kind of power. But the link's in the description if you want to see them. I mean, I'm not endorsing people to go look at somebody else's private business, but I know that, people might want to see them, so it's there if you want it.
I'm not endorsing anybody check out revenge pornography or leaked photos. But yeah, the link's in the description below, bro. Wild shit. It's kind of crazy how people are like, whoa, maybe you shouldn't be sharing somebody's personal private stuff, even if it is available on a public ClearNet page on the internet, probably isn't good to share it. And yes, this person is a giant hypocrite based on what I'm about to show you.
First off, what I have to say, though, is that when you look on the news, you see people, they've leaked nudes from their girlfriend at a high school, and that girl kills herself. It's a tragic story. Everybody calls the guy a bully. But yet when people like Perez Hilton do it, it's considered entertainment.
So he's bringing up some cockroach e-celebrity shitbag like Perez Hilton and thinking, yeah, it's okay now if I do it. Anyways, you go to their actual link. I shit you not. They actually still have one that goes to Hollywood Life. So yeah, even tagged it up and everything. I do not support the leak, and I'm not condoning these actions. Dog, you just shared the actual link right there. And yes, it is the actual link, because when I put it into Wayback Machine, I do come across what appears to be leaked images that should not have been leaked and shared around. And yes, this person literally linked to a website right there. Now, this actually baffles me because I would think, damn, why would anybody like this do that kind of behavior? And again, going back to Ava Tyson's page, I decided, man, maybe I should ask them about all of this stuff straight up. So I noticed, wow, I have the messages. Do I have DMs with Ava Tyson? I don't remember it having any DM information or contact. Turns out, ladies and gentlemen, she actually did try contacting me at some point in May 13. What did I do in May? I talked about Keffels. And because of this, it basically sparked a bit of a, transgender panic and discussion on, a lot of popular Reddit boards. And to this day, I'm still basically fighting off accusations of transphobia. Now, Chris hits me up in the middle of a drive back home from New York and says, so glad you said there's legit info on Kiwi. She's referring to Kiwi Farms. Legit being people telling people to go to my house and, do something bad. That website is the reason my child has a gun pointed at him by cops. They rename my family businesses on Google, harass and dox my family members to the point where they don't talk to me anymore, and are the reasons I had to move. So thank you for sending more eyes to the bottom of the barrel of the internet, where transphobia is encouraged by the creator who enjoys and has encouraged doxes of me, because they think that I am a Jewish person being paid by Disney to transition. Now, this is a very wild accusation, because if Ava took maybe even 5 minutes out of her life to watch the video that she is so hard on criticizing, then she would realize that I actually decry what the actual website would do if it means harassing and doxing anyone. There's no actual, way that anybody can approve of that kind of behavior. It's fucked up. But I believe the reason why, Chris Tyson dislikes a lot of online message boards and image boards and places like Kiwi Farms is they're the only people that are actually cataloging archive links of this stuff right there. A lot of creators and researchers on the internet and people who dig up stuff like this actually use that website, okay? I'm just going to be honest, that's just how it kind of works behind the scenes. Anybody that says otherwise, most often than not, is a little too cowardly to admit that they've maybe accessed the website. But to give you an idea about this situation, I don't condone any of this negative behavior, especially when people are harassing and doxing and attacking family members or even the person themselves. There's just no justification for it. But I find it very hypocritical how this person, even if it's 10 years ago, felt that they decided to put a link to another girl's nudes, young girl by the way, okay? Obviously she didn't enjoy that whatsoever. It was disgusting then and it's disgusting now. How this person, even if I didn't even directly link any of this, in fact, I never threw anything like that on my channel anyways, and they're getting mad at me for linking people in some weird proxy way to personal information, even though I very much have not. This is incredibly hypocritical, and one of the things that fucking made me laugh when I was putting the docket together for this video on such short notice. Look, at the end of the day, I don't think that Ava Tyson is a good person. I think Mr. Beast keeps some bad company. And there are two actual situations, the Shadman stuff and this Jeanette McCurdy situation, that are incredibly disgusting things that should absolutely be viewed with complete scrutiny. However, these things are ultimately buddied behind waves of grooming or, these messages being shared that have still yet to be properly confirmed or actually vetted. I feel like if you want to nail somebody for disgusting behavior, you might as well stick to things that are actually a little bit more solid than just standard Discord messages or Snapchat messages or whatnot. Look, I think hyping up a lowly artist, and it's not just Ava that did it, by the way. There's plenty of Newground artists that have done this behavior. I believe Belle Delphine is even attached to it as well, too. As well as plenty of other, e-girls on the internet. I think like that Kiwi Sunset girl as well, too. I believe even you've got individuals like Aaron Hansen or people related close to him. Look, the point is, I'm not throwing Chris Tyson exclusively under the bus over here. I'm just saying that there's a group of people back then who decided to be adjacent to this disgusting artist, and, that's not a good look, all right? Putting up art like that is not a good look. And again, this Jeanette McCurdy stuff, it is actually disgusting to look at. It makes me want to fucking throw up because it's filthy. But yeah, Ava Tyson, all the way in the internet. And honestly, deep diving into this individual has not made me look at them with a clean bill of health. Absolutely disgusting behavior, but not something that honestly really shocks me, given how much this person just constantly tries to hide away. In this entire editing process so far, Chris Tyson actually ended up coming out with an actual apology. Or a non-apology, as I would say. I would like to apologize for any of my past behavior or comments if it hurt or offended anyone. It was not my intent. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen. Oh man, I am ready. I am ready for the wildest thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to straight up tell you how it is. The TSA no-fly checklist just got leaked. Now, of course, for those of you who don't know what a no-fly list is, I'm somebody who's pretty ethnically challenged when it comes to airports. I know a lot about airport security, okay? Boy, oh boy, the TSA loves to check up my bunghole from time to time. But let's get started. So what is a no-fly list? A no-fly list, in the United States at least, is a special list that some people get put on. When you get put on the no-fly list, that means flying in, out, or over the United States becomes a pretty big challenge on commercial airlines, okay? Imagine you go to the airport, okay? You sign in, you do everything, you check in, all right, you're ready to go get yourself checked through security. Somehow your name gets tripped up. Maybe it could be a false flag, because sometimes you have had cases where people who've had similar names to people on the no-fly list just get dragged away by airport security. You got Homeland Security, you got TSA, you got flashlights up your rectum. That's pretty much how the entire scenario plays out. Now, for a lot of journalists, a lot of human rights advocates, this can be a bit of an issue, all right? For the safety and security of the country, obviously the list exists so that, actual criminals, actual individuals that are of a terroristic quality can pretty much be weeded out. And if these people or any of their aliases show up at an airport within the US or are flying near it, you can bet security and customs will be there to drag those individuals away to some godforsaken black site in some part of the world. So of course, why are we talking about it today? Well, it took a cybersecurity breach, an incident, for the TSA's list to end up being leaked. So how did the story of kind of epic hacking begin? All right, it basically took less than a day. Now, of course, this comes from a Maya blog, who's an InfoSec security individual, who basically provided how to own an airline in 3 easy steps. So that first step starts off with boredom. Now, the boredom step typically involved this individual using something known as Shodan. For those of you who don't know what Shodan is effectively a search engine for internet services. Internet servers, I guess you could say the easiest way to put it out is this is basically a search engine to look for servers that are connected to the internet using varieties of filters, okay? Typically, it's a search engine of things known as server banners, which is effectively metadata for servers that are interacting all over the internet. So again, the way that it works, all right, aside from being a cute reference to System Shock, Shodan effectively allows you to look for certain types of servers. Now, what happened was this individual was looking for servers known as Jenkins servers. Now, Jenkins servers, for anybody that doesn't know what they are, Jenkins servers are effectively servers that allow you to automate processes. So typically when you're building projects, deploying projects, and automating, aspects of them, Jenkins servers are created. So effectively what happened over here was they looked through a bunch of Jenkins servers, and around 20 servers or so later, they ended up finding what is known as ACARs. Now, for those of you who don't know what an ACARS is, I know there's a lot of new things that I'm mentioning. This is the Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System. So basically, aircrafts use like a telex system to basically communicate back and forth between aircrafts and ground stations. Okay, so this is an example of what is an ACARS message. Okay, it's a way for airplanes to communicate between one or the other. So here's the thing. When somebody finds information like this floating around, you know that you're playing with airline companies, and that can be a pretty spooky endeavor, okay? There's a lot of sensitive information that's floating around. So one airline company in particular, Commute Air, was the one that actually ended up having an exposed Jenkins server. Now, while this might not be special, it's time to understand just how much access our hacker friend even really had. So according to them, let's not get too excited. Just because we found a funky Jenkins server doesn't mean we'll have access to much more than build logs, which is true. It quickly turns out that while we don't have anonymous admin access, yes, that's quite frequently the case. God, I love Jenkins. We do have access to build workspaces, which means we get to see the repositories that were built for each of the 70-ish build jobs that existed. So at this point, it's time to dig in and do the boring practice. Now, of course, most hacking is not Hollywood style. It's really just having a video up and going through a bunch of builds, a bunch of files in order to find that one shiny piece, that one thing that makes the whole process worth it. So 2 minutes into basically looking in and finding this one project called ACARS incoming, they ended up finding a FTP server, a SFTP server, Secure File Transfer Protocol, and they ended up looking into ACARS incoming for Navtech. Navtech, which is an Airbus company detailing ACARS information, okay? So again, I don't even know how much I can show you. Nothing is super duper sensitive, but you can see that information is from the 1st of January 2023. So again, super new information, last modified literally on the 6th of January. So this is, again, information that is very, very recent, okay? Now, of course, some of the information, and again, I'm going to blur out a fair bit for you because I don't know what is entirely sensitive and what I cannot show you. But for anybody that wants to know what I'm looking at, effectively, this is ACARS messages being sent around. And the only people that are going to understand it are obviously people working in the aviation industry, people who are communicating from airplanes to ground systems. As I kept looking at more and more config files in more and more of the projects, it dawned on me just how heavily I had already owned them within just half an hour or so. Hard-coded credentials there would allow me to access the NavBlue APIs for refueling, canceling and updating flights, swapping out crew members, and so on. Assuming I was willing to ever interact with the SOAP API in my life, which I sure as hell am not. Jesus Christ. However, this is where it gets interesting. I kept looking back at 2 projects named No Fly Comparison and No Fly Comparison version 2, which seemingly take the TSA no fly list and check if any Commute Air's crew members have ended up there. So again, it's literally designed to make sure that nobody working for the staff of Commute Air is somehow on the TSA no fly list, because as you can imagine, if that was the case, it would make it pretty hard to schedule them to fly through US commercial airspace. So again, what had happened was they found hard-coded credentials and S3 bucket names for Amazon Web Services clouds. So, however, I just can't find the actual list anywhere, because it obviously gets deleted because of people prodding in and out of these servers, potentially. So again, they had all these, the Amazon Web Service endpoints and secret keys, access keys, so on and so forth, which they've blurred out so nobody can abuse them any further. So at this point, they started talking to a reporter from the Daily Dot, and they basically gave him a rundown that in about half an hour after they started talking, they ended up finding AWS credentials. I now seemingly have access to pretty much their entire AWS infrastructure via AWS, CLI. Which is the command line interface. Numerous S3 buckets, dozens of dynamic ODB tables, as well as various servers and much more. Commute really loves to use AWS. AWS, for those of you who don't know, is Amazon Web Services. A lot of enterprise clients and a lot of commercial services will use AWS Cloud in order to facilitate their big businesses and most of the network stuff that they have going on, because they just like to pass that off to people that can handle all of that for them. The security, the distribution, so on and so forth. So at this point, they ended up finding and looking at a test data repository, and they found 3 CSV files: employeeinformation.csv, nofly.csv, and selecty.csv, all committed to the repository in July 2022. The no-fly CSV is almost 80 megabytes in size and contains over 1.56 million rows of data. This has to be the real deal. And then, of course, they got a confirmation that, yes, it is in fact the leaked no-fly list from 2019. So obviously, we're missing a few years of data, but yes, they've got the complete list confirmed from 2019 and before. So they looked even further and they found out for the crew members, they had full names, addresses, phone numbers, passport numbers, their pilot license numbers, whenever the next line check, which is basically, them getting tested again, as far as I understand, when it comes to, piloting. I had trip sheets for every flight, the potential to access every flight plan ever, a whole bunch of image attachments to booking for reimbursement flights containing yet again more PII. Airplane maintenance data, you name it. I had owned them completely in less than a day, with no skill required besides the patience to sift through hundreds of Shodan results. So again, obviously when it came to the no-fly list, they obviously acknowledged that the information is highly sensitive, and they believe it's in the public interest to be made public for journalists and human rights organizations. So again, if you're a journalist, a researcher, or a party with legitimate interest, this person is actually allowing you to get access to this information. I don't know what the legalities for this individual are. I don't even know if, I generally have to believe with them leaking this information out, this is huge. There is no way the TSA or any Homeland Security organization in the US is going to let this run by. But of course, this is a story of how one of the most secretive documents in the United States, one of the most important documents when it comes to the safeguarding of the country and, making sure that the right people or the wrong people, in the eyes of the government, of course, can access U.S. airspace. That ended up being leaked through a company that ended up having one of the most insecure servers hanging out for the world. So for a lot of people watching, yes, this is in fact how one of the wildest hacks of 2023, and remember, the year just started. We're in the first month, and the TSA no-fly list has actually been leaked out in quite possibly the most laughable way I've ever seen. This didn't involve an individual going through, 9 proxies and breaching through some of the most hardened servers in the US federal system. No, it really took this person search engineing, looking through servers exposed to the internet, build servers, automation servers, and within a day, they found out one of the most secretive documents to exist. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is no bigger cause for concern for some of these companies and making sure their cybersecurity practices are up to date and snuff, I don't know what is. This is me, Mutahar, and hopefully you all learned something. Hopefully you had a laugh. And, if you're wondering, man, why can't I fly through the United States? Am I on the no-fly list? You probably already know it, obviously, if you've ever been hassled at the airport pretty heavily. But, yeah, that one document's been leaked. In the wildest ways I've ever seen. I can't believe it, dude. This is insane. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. This is me, Mutahar, and I am out. आज आप लोग का दिन कैसे चल रहा है? मैं हूँ अनस. कैसे हो? Ladies and gentlemen, that was a Hindi intro. Wow, everything kind of rhymed together. Now, I've been recording some stuff for my secret Indian commentary channel. You'll never figure out who it is. Now, I'm not making this video to sound sort of hyperbolic in any situation. I've constantly dogged on TikTok for years, right? Mostly for pretty harmless reasons. I usually considered it to be a pretty cringy social network, but then again, I consider almost every social network to be relatively cringy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in very recent years, or not recent years, now, ladies and gentlemen, in recent weeks, India and China have been suffering through quite a bit of an anger session, okay? They haven't been exactly feeling too good about each other lately. If you don't know, there's a border dispute going right now, and Indian and Chinese soldiers are kind of going at it. India has actually banned 59 Chinese mobile applications in the span of almost no time. These include, obviously, TikTok, but they also include things like UC Browser, Cam Scanner. All right, heck, if you go down, you can find things like Mobile Legends. If you find DU Privacy, Hago Play with New Friends, even Clean Master, which obviously I think it personally deserves a ban. Half these cleaning apps for your Android phone defo do. But yeah, they've just outright banned them. So, ladies and gentlemen, this actually, if you were an Indian tech company, you'd probably cream yourself, because this means that you could probably make your own app and get about 1 billion plus users downloading that instead of whatever they were using made from Chinese lands. Now, this has actually been happening mostly, I think, because of this border dispute. Now, what's actually come out are a bunch of security researchers who have brought out some compelling proof or evidence in their name that TikTok is, in fact, spying on you. So this post here comes from Dan Okopny, who's actually a sysadmin, healthcare tech, and a problem solver. Now, this is also Dirty Dan. Okay, I'm just going to give the shout-outs where appropriate. Dirty Dan said, a guy on Reddit reverse-engineered TikTok. Here's what he found on the data it collects on you. It's far worse than just stealing what's on your clipboard. That we'll get to. Now, if you open up this post, I'm going to kind of just guide you through it, and I'll commentate on things that, as somebody who knows about this stuff, can tell you more appropriately. So I can personally weigh in on this. I reverse engineered the app and feel confident in stating that I have a very strong understanding for how the app operates. TikTok is a data collection service that is thinly veiled as a social network. If there is an API to get information on you, your contacts, or your device, well, they're using it. Phone hardware, so these are the things that they're basically jacking off your phone. Phone hardware, CPU type, number of course, hardware IDs, screen dimensions, DPI, memory usage, disk space, etc. Now, all this is actually information that wouldn't necessarily be too hard to dig up on anybody, just because of the fact that most programs that you'd be using on your cell phone device will probably know this information as soon as you fire it up. That isn't exactly, the silver bullet that you can be using. Other apps you have installed, I have even seen some I've deleted show up in their analytics payload, maybe using as cached value. This is a little odd, personally, but I don't think this is outright malicious. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of applications, if you assess this, would actually be doing the exact same thing as TikTok. I think Facebook probably does this more egregiously than just TikTok. Everything network related, IP, local IP, router MAC, your MAC, Wi-Fi access point name. Again, it has access to your network stack pretty extensively. I'm sure most applications will be able to figure this one out too. Whether or not you're rooted or jailbroken, Actually, a lot of games do this too. I know specifically there were cases of a lot of games from Square Enix, like Deus Ex The Fall, that actually would not work properly because some devices, notably iOS devices, were jailbroken. And that's because you could find a way to hack through the microtransactions. That actually isn't as uncommon as you also think. Some variants of the app had GPS pinging enabled at the time, roughly once every 30 seconds. This is enabled by default if you ever location tag a post, as I recall. Now, this is something that always weirds me out, and I really like it when iPhone does this whole thing where it notifies you what app constantly uses your location. The reality is, most of the times, I never give any app location services. Even if I use a social network, the last thing I do is give it location services. I only give applications access to my location GPS if they really need it. So we're talking about GPS applications. And not much else, especially not a social media network, that's for sure. They set up a local proxy server on your device for transcoding media, but that can be abused very easily as it has zero authentication. That's a bit odd. I don't know what they mean by proxy server. What does it mean, like a special like network, like bridge for them to like send data through? That I feel could be elaborated a bit more. Now again, most of this list isn't actually as scary as it seems. I think most people are kind of blowing this out of proportion. If they ever noticed how many other applications, specifically on Android, which does a terrible job, by the way, Android, of actually like detailing what these specific this is where I give iPhones, the top tier advantage. Location services, permission services on Android are so vague that this kind of stuff, you'd be surprised how many applications you use that actually do the exact same things listed on this list. The scariest part about all this is that the logging they're doing is remotely configurable. And unless you have every single one of their native libraries, have fun reading all that assembly, assuming you can get past their customized fork of OLLVM and manually inspect every single obfuscated function, they have several different protections in place to prevent you from reversing or debugging the app as well. App behavior changes slightly if they know you're trying to figure out what they're doing. There's also a few snippets of code on the Android version that allow for the downloading of a remote zip file, unzipping it, and executing said binary. That is true. There is zero reason a mobile app would need this functionality legitimately. That I completely agree with. This last paragraph is something that should kind of freak you out a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, reverse engineering is something a lot of app developers consistently fight against, especially if you're someone as big as TikTok. I bet you Facebook, if you look through their code, if you look through any big company's code, they'd have a ton of obfuscated functions. They'd have a ton of anti-reverse engineering mechanisms so that their proprietary code can't easily be figured out and used against them by another company. That much is true. Corporate warfare is real, and that's primarily the reason why they do it. But this last section, remote zip file downloading, unzipping, and executing whatever binary is in there is bad, especially on Android. iOS, you're not able to pull it off. Apple will not let you, which, by the way, I remind you, is a positive for the iPhone in a way. For Android, all fair game for them. That is something that if you have TikTok downloaded, and that turns out to be true, again, this is just a Reddit post, I highly recommend you get rid of it, because that isn't legitimate. On top of all the above, they weren't even using HTTPS for the longest time. They leaked users' email address and their HTTP REST API, as well as their secondary emails used for password resets. Don't forget about users' real names and birthdays too. It was all publicly viewable a few months ago if you man-in-the-middled the application. That's true. For applications that don't even do things like end-to-end encryption, where they encrypt the data from one end to the other end, they're probably not using basic things like HTTPS, meaning that whatever data you send to a server, if somebody's man-in-the-middling it, meaning they're able to look at all the traffic sent back and forth, they're able to pick out data packets sent by you and figure out very quickly what you're sending. That's a pretty bad thing to do. And again, it's a reason why you should get rid of it. Now, hacking a big server, if you really want to get real and technical about it, is pretty damn impossible these days, especially with how security has gotten. That's why it's much more better if you can man-in-the-middle these things and get user information before it's been encrypted or sent to a secure server location. That's what that paragraph is about. They provide users with a taste of virality to entice them to stay on the platform. Your first TikTok post will likely garner quite a bit of likes, regardless of how good it is, assuming you get past the initial moderation queue if that's still a thing. Most users end up chasing the dragon. That is so true for social media. Once your first post gets traction, you really want to make sure that that snowball keeps rolling. I know that. Trust me, that's real. That mentality exists. Here's the thing, though. They don't want you to know how much information they're collecting on you, and the security implications of all that data in one place en masse are fucking huge. They encrypt all the analytics requests with an algorithm that changes with every update. At the very least, the encryption keys change, just so you can't see what they're doing. They also made it so you cannot use the app at all if you block communication to their analytics host off at the DNS level. Meaning if you get rid of their separate server that you send different packets to, packets to their DNS server, yeah, they'll block you altogether. If they're not getting your data, if they're not getting your analytics, you're out of here. For what it's worth, I've reversed the Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, and Twitter apps. So what I said earlier, let's see this real quick. They don't collect anywhere near the same amount of data that TikTok does. And they sure as hell aren't outright trying to hide exactly what's being sent like TikTok is. It's like comparing a cup of water to the ocean. They just don't compare. So he says that these applications do kind of the same in theory, but they're nowhere near as egregious, to which I guess I'll agree with him on. You know, I think for most American tech companies, if they were caught farming user data this egregiously, there would be a lawsuit ready and waiting in California, Silicon Valley, right at their doorstep if they were doing it. Reddit, a little bit odd. I'm not sure, is Reddit fully... Reddit has a stake by Tencent, but not completely Chinese owned as far as I know. Okay, so now to add further context to it, there's a website named Penetrum.com, which is a penetrations testing firm, I would say, like a group that does this kind of stuff for you. They actually released a couple white papers that you can look into, and here they were showcasing that TikTok, while it is a Chinese mobile application, 37% of IP addresses they pinged were stationed outside the United States, many of them by Alibaba, who, if you wanted to get technical, is kind of like Amazon Web Services, so just the data company, I would think, the data farm that powers TikTok. This isn't totally odd. I've seen this with many Chinese-oriented games. It either goes to Alibaba or it goes to Tencent. So here you can see that you're going to Zhejiang, Hangzhou. I hope I pronounced all that right, by the way. My Chinese isn't exactly perfect. But you can see that the ISP is Alibaba, so that's probably the owner of the data center in specific. So here you can see somebody's video where it says TikTok is grabbing the contents of my clipboard every 1 to 3 keystrokes. So let's just let me show you what's going on here. So here he's typing in Instagram. And up here, actually, iOS is notifying him that TikTok is actually copying whatever's in there. Now, the reason why this is important is Apple has actually done a really important job, a very good job of telling users what data, how their phone is being manipulated. So when I said earlier things like location, Apple would tell you if other apps was looking into it. Now they tell you if apps are looking into your clipboard. So meaning that if you control, copy, or paste sensitive information like passwords, which you should never do, other applications could in fact dig that information out. But with all of that said, Apple notifies you, and it's very shady that TikTok, while it's not being used, as far as I know, is digging out information from like Instagram or whatever. So why is it doing that? I don't know. What's going on? Is there some cross-application functionality we don't know? I don't know, but Apple is exposing it more than you could ever think of. Apple's actually the goddamn unsung hero for penetrations testing right now, dude. Okay, so to finalize this video, let's get real and talk about the actual concern over here. Now, if we're talking about data surveillance, the reason why people are getting a little pissed about this or a little woke is because China's involved. Now, whether or not you want to get into the conspiracies, I'm going to say this from my personal belief. I do not doubt for a second that the Chinese Communist Party is actively using their connections with their biggest tech firms, Tencent, Alibaba, or whoever, to spy on user data internationally. Now, this is actually an analysis by the government of Canada into China's intelligence law, where they show on Article 14 they may request relevant organs, organizations, and citizens provide necessary support, assistance, and cooperation. Intelligence officials may enter relevant restricted areas and venues and may learn from and question relevant institutions, individuals, and may read or collect relevant files, materials, or items. So that can also narrow down into actual digital media, which is precisely what they may be going for, meaning that if you're a Chinese tech firm, there's no doubt in my mind that this law can be used to subpoena records from you extra legally. Now, the reason why this is very important is these countries under this alliance, the United States years ago, under operator Edward Snowden for the National Security Agency, exposed that the United States government was actually had backdoors on multiple like social media services, hardware services, US tech companies. So as users were sharing data around, they would have a backdoor that they would dig data out of whenever they pleased. Once this was exposed, Edward Snowden was pretty much put on a US kill list, meaning that this dude has escaped all the way to Russia. If the US catches up with him and gets a clean shot at him, that dude is considered a traitor. Like, we're talking a traitor of the nth degree. He exposed one of the biggest data surveillance operations, and that was the US doing it. China, we put it up to conspiracy, but when it comes to the United States, I think it's pretty clear as day. In fact, if you go just even back further into like 1997, there was something called Carnivore, or DCS-1000, which the FBI used to monitor email and electronic communications. It was effectively one of their most elaborate packet sniffers of all time. That is something that had existed. The FBI used this in a project called Omnivore. Look it up, for real. This is some serious surveillance stuff. The United States has been doing this since the dawn of the internet. So the point of it is to not pick one side or the other. I think a lot of people are looking at this as Chinese data gathering, big, evil, and scary. Point I'm making is all data gathering is evil and scary. Most of these applications, not just TikTok, we're talking Facebook, Twitter, a lot of these US social networks, or any social network in particular, could be prone to any backdoor, could be prone to having your data MITM'd. The point I'm trying to make about TikTok is it's slowly coming out that it's quite legitimate what they're going through, and that's why I honestly confirm that you should probably delete TikTok time goes on, right? Even with all of that said, I think it's time we focus more on our phone security. See, if you're an Android user, these permissions are kind of all over the place, and I would be very, very careful going forward with what apps you download from the Play Store, given how much malware exists, what apps you're using going forward. But I'd also be very careful if you're also an iOS user going forward too, because who knows what kind of stuff is running in the background, what kind of cracks slip through the system. And just be understanding that no matter where you live, your country may be covertly spying on you or overtly spying on you. And the point is, spying is all the same where you go around. Be careful with the data you have on your phone, because this is worth more than oil and gold. I am not kidding you. And in a day like ours, in a day and age like 2020, where data is the most sacred asset one has, the defining asset some people have, you should be careful going forward with how you monitor it, how you secure it, and how you share it. Do I think you should delete TikTok? Yeah, but I think by the end of the video, you should be careful of not just TikTok, but almost any service you're using to share your personally identifiable information with. That being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, that was Muda's little piece, Muda's little essay. Sorry if I got a little long-winded. Sorry if I get a little boring. But yeah, that being said, though, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.